Chapter 622. Who else could it be for? They just want to meet our noble and cold scientific researcher. Si Qingyan chuckled. Zhong Shenglin was speechless. Why were those people still unwilling to give up? But don't worry. I heard Master Pei's conversation, and heard her personally reject Neely University's invitation to meet. Si Qingyan was still holding the thermos flask in his hand as he sighed. Our family is a hot treasure now. After all, the double nomination of the Farisk Award and the Busaka Award was indeed very shocking. There's no way they can snatch it now. Zhong Shenglin laughed coldly and pointed at the dozen bodyguards at the door. Do you see that? This door can only be entered but not exited. Si Qingyan was speechless. Where did you find those people? All along, Si Qingyan had thought that Zhong Shenglin had gotten them to fight with someone for Bai Yunj. He was afraid that others would snatch what he had painstakingly poached. Zhong Shenglin could also see Si Qingyan's disdain. He reached out and knocked his head, his expression dark. What do you mean, where did you find them? This is what the higher-ups want. The higher-ups want? Si Qingyan was stunned. Zhong Shenglin said, to maintain safety. I'm afraid that criminals will target our computing institute. Si Qingyan was speechless. Why didn't we receive this treatment in the past? Hearing this, Zhong Shenglin looked at him and smiled without saying anything. When Si Qingyan saw this, he understood the reason. So they were here to protect Bai Yunj. Why didn't they just guard the entrance of her research lab? How spectacular would it be if they surrounded her? Si Qingyan could no longer suppress the envy, jealousy, and hatred in his heart. That will depend on when Yunj reveals her identity. Instantly, Si Qingyan understood. So it wasn't that he didn't want to stand at the door, but that she didn't want him. When would it be his turn to receive such treatment as a national treasure? Do your research well. You'll probably have this treatment in more than 10 years. Zhong Shenglin patted Si Qingyan's shoulder. Si Qingyan was speechless. This kind of consolation was worse than no consolation at all. At the end of the day, Si Qingyan was also very talented. Otherwise, how could he become a professor at Yin University in his 20s? However, ever since Bai Yunj appeared, she had given the others too much pressure. By the way, when did the competition in the city center start? Zhong Shenglin asked. Si Qingyan replied without hesitation. 2:30 this afternoon. Zhong Shenglin. Now who the hell would dare to get Bai Yunj out of the lab? Go and get him out. If you can't get him out, don't even think about getting this month's salary. Zhong Shenglin pushed him towards the entrance of Bai Yunj, and he slipped away quickly. Si Qingyan. Was this something a human would do? After turning around, Si Qingyan knocked on the door. Master Pei. Si Qingyan knocked a few times before the door suddenly opened. He saw Bai Yunj, whose expression was a little dark. Her excessively beautiful eyes were filled with impatience. What's wrong? Do you want to go to the city center with me? The moment Si Qingyan finished speaking, the door closed with a bang. At the same time, Bai Yunj said resolutely. No. Si Qingyan, who had almost been rejected, was speechless. A few minutes later, Bai Yunj returned to the computer and looked at the virtual data she had written. Not long after she sat down, she received another call. Chapter 623. Bai Yunj glanced at the caller ID and answered the call. What's wrong? Song Yao, who was preparing for the competition, noticed that Bai Yunj's voice seemed a little hoarse. Guer, I'm having a competition this afternoon. Are you coming to watch? Song Yao's voice was gentle and soft, making people like her immediately. I'm busy. Bai Yunj stared at the screen intently. But I'm a little nervous to go on stage alone. Hearing this, Bai Yunj stopped working on the keyboard and asked, Are Tich and the rest not around? Tich and Jasmine are student notaries. It's not good for them to interact with me on the field. Song Yao glanced at her watch and smiled. If you don't come, it's meaningless to get first place. However, she did not expect to see Si Qingyan the moment she pushed open the door. Bai Yunj's eyes suddenly curved. Brother Yan? Si Qingyan was speechless. He hated Bai Yunj calling him that now. Hearing this, Bai Yunj smirked. After saving the data on the computer, he stood up. Okay, wait for me for half an hour. With that said, Bei Yunj hung up the call, took off his clean white coat and walked out. Lend me a car? I want to go to the city center. Soon. Every time she called him, nothing good would happen. What do you want now? Si Qingyan took a deep breath. My friend is having a competition. I'll go take a look. Bei Yunj probably did not rest well. The moment the air conditioner in the car was turned on, his voice was slightly hoarse and nasal. Si Qingyan looked at Bei Yunj in the back seat. She was wearing a loose sweater, and even the hood covered most of her face. She was leaning lazily against the car seat with her arms crossed, and he could not help frowning. Si Qingyan drove her to the city center. Because Bei Yunj did not have a driver's license, he did not dare to borrow her car. Why are you going to the city center? Si Qingyan could not help but be puzzled. But now, with Bei Yunj's crazy research, her body would not be able to take it sooner or later. Nothing will happen. Bei Yunj licked her lips. Her voice was still hoarse. Yunj, haven't you been too unrestrained recently? If this goes on, how long do you think you can live? There were also many scholars in the scientific research circle. Due to their profession, they were exposed to too much radiation. Their lifespans were shortened, or their appearances were damaged. However, in the field of computing, as long as he took good care of his body, there would not be any accidents. At this moment, someone pointed at the girl in the white dress and said enviously, "She has such a good temperament." You're talking about that? That seems to be a student from Neely University's Art Academy. Her name seems to be Yuling. The girl recognized Yuling Neely University? That's amazing. Si Qingyan couldn't take it anymore, and threw a bottle of water behind him. In the city center auditorium. Look at that big sister, she's so pretty. Yuling also heard the discussions behind her. The corners of her lips curled up at the perfect angle, as if she was used to these praises. Spirit. She's more than just amazing. She's one of the student notaries for this year's math competition. You have to know that all the previous notaries are influential figures in Neely University. Hearing this, everyone looked at Yuling with even more admiration. She's so good-looking and so outstanding? Is she the female lead who walked out of the movie? In the distance, Yuling's mentor called out to her. Professor, what's wrong? Yuling took small steps forward and asked with a smile. Go and gather with the other student notaries. The competition will be official soon. Chapter 624. Who are the other student notaries? Yuling didn't know about this. She was able to get this spot because she knew a senior who happened to have an infectious disease and couldn't go abroad. As for the school, they couldn't find any other students to replace them, so they found Yuling, who was already in Yincheng. Tichin Jasmine. The tutor's eyes were proud and he couldn't stop smiling. They are the students of. Yuling had some impression of this name. She seemed to have heard this person's name a lot recently. An amazing scientific researcher. The tutor praised with some regret. This is the first time I've seen such a genius, but she's from country A. Country A? Yuling was stunned for a moment and couldn't help but look at her tutor. She was actually aware of some of the bad practices in Country R's academic circle. Many scholars in Country R actually had a lot of prejudice and conflict against scholars from Country A. Not to mention praising a scholar from Country A so straightforwardly. So, how amazing was this person that these arrogant people were willing to admit it? That's right. The tutor looked at Yuling and smiled. You won't understand even if I tell you this. Such an existence is a genius that every big country is willing to fight for. Being said so straightforwardly, the smugness on Yuling's face instantly disappeared and she even stiffened. Is that so? I have to admit that Country A is developing rapidly now. But in reality, it will take at least 200 years for Country A's computing field to catch up with Country R. The tutor shook his head and smiled helplessly. But now, it doesn't seem to be the case. A genius who appeared out of nowhere could easily cause a change in the world situation. She is that amazing? Lele asked. Yuling couldn't help but ask. Yes, we estimate that Country A's computing field will make an immeasurable leap in the years she's alive. The tutor was sincere and envious. But I heard that she seems to be very young, maybe only in her 30s or 40s. The younger she was, the the faster country A's computing field would grow. At this moment, after the tutor finished speaking, he felt that he had said too much and immediately said to Yuling, "Go look for Tich and the others." Okay. Yuling lowered her head and no one could tell what she was thinking. Last time, when she left the Ji family, it was obvious that Ji Yiqing had no interest in her. But now, she had the chance to come into contact with Tich and Jasmine. The two of them were famous second-generation heirs of the richest families in country R. If she could befriend one of them, she wouldn't have to live like before anymore. Thinking of this, Yuling's eyes darkened and she quickened her pace. Soon, in the long corridor backstage, she saw two handsome foreign men. Yuling blushed. Is it Mr. Jasmine and Mr. Tich? Jasmine's appearance was handsome and unruly. His temperament was a little roguish, and his pair of blue eyes were mesmerizing. As soon as Yuling's eyes met his, she couldn't look away. You are? Jasmine leaned against the wall lazily and glanced at Yuling. I'm Neely's student notary. Teacher. Hopes that we can go find him together. Alright, let's go together then. Jasmine nodded, but after that, he chatted with Tich the entire time. He didn't even look at Yuling. Chapter 625. Tich didn't know what Jasmine was thinking. Did he like Song Yao? Was he being too daring? If they broke up and his ex-girlfriend was his teacher's good friend, was there anything more suffocating than this? Seeing that Tich ignored him, Jasmine was still immersed in his own imagination. How could he woo his teacher's good friend? At this moment, when Yuling heard the word Yao, she panicked inexplicably. However, when she regained her senses, she immediately dismissed her thoughts. What a joke. With Song Yao's current status, she did not even have much contact with the upper-class society. How could she come into contact with a rich second-generation heir like Jasmine? Yuling calmed her nervous breathing and said with a smile, Mr. Jasmine, do you have a girl you like? Jasmine glanced at Yuling and only nodded, not saying anything. Hearing this, Yuling felt an inexplicable imbalance in her heart. She did not know who had captured the heart of a top young master so easily. She was most likely one of those noble ladies who was well matched in terms of social status. Yuling gave a fake smile. Mr. Jasmine is so outstanding. Why don't you dare to express your feelings? With my status, I might not have the right to woo her. Jasmine had added Song Yao's account some time ago, and clicked into Song Yao's WeChat moments. He had almost secretly taken photos of Bei Yunj. She would not show her face. At most, she would only show her side profile slightly. However, those who were familiar with her would be able to recognize Bei Yunj at a glance. When Yuling heard this, she felt that her guess was right. I think that young lady should be very beautiful and capable, right? Unlike me, who studied design and barely got into Neely University. Yuling said with a smile. Tich glanced at Yuling and said nothing. At this moment, Jasmine's eyelids lifted slightly as he casually agreed. Yes, it's very impressive. Yuling's expression changed and her smile froze. Shouldn't most of the guys be praising her tactfully at this moment? At this moment, Yuling did not say anything else. The three of them went backstage to look at the machines needed for the competition. Tich and Jasmine were not interested in this and did not pay much attention. On Yuling's side, she casually flipped through the competition group and suddenly saw a familiar name. Song Yao. Yuling's eyes darkened, and she suddenly remembered that Song Yao had been forced to repeat high school by Fu Yanbai. So it turned out to be true. The corners of Yuling's lips suddenly curled up, and she was in a good mood. She never thought that one day, she would be a notary and Song Yao would be a competitor. In the past, Song Yao was the top student in Yincheng First High. He was more outstanding than her in every aspect. He looked so high and mighty. Thinking of this, Yuling laughed mockingly. Then, she recalled the words she had heard on the road earlier. They seemed to be discussing that Xia Ning was also participating in the competition. Yuling remembered this junior. She had a good relationship with her back then, and she was talented in mathematics. It was more than enough to get into the top 3 of the competition. Suddenly, Yuling laughed and suddenly swiped the screen, changing Song Yao's original opponent to Su Xianing. If Song Yao did not pass the first round, she had no hope of entering the top 10. Yuling's eyes were filled with uncontrollable joy and jealousy. She wanted to see if anyone could help Song Yao this time. After the competition started for a while, a familiar person backstage suddenly shouted, "Song Yao, where did you come from?" Chapter 626. Song Yao wiped her sweat and placed a plastic bag on the table. Her voice was clear and gentle. "I bought something." "Are you sick? Why did you buy medicine?" The girl looked over and saw that there seemed to be a box of cold medicine. "It's not for me." Song Yao laughed. Hearing this, the girl finally noticed that there was something else in the plastic bag. "For a child? My brother liked to eat these snacks when he was young, but he didn't like them after junior high school." Hearing this, Song Yao could not help but smile. Yes, only children like them. The competition started very quickly. Although it was called an auditorium, the size of the building was more like a large event venue. There were high platforms on both sides and a large screen in front of them, making it easier to see the competition venue. About half an hour later, Song Yao glanced at the time and did not see Bei Yunj, so she could only put the things in the lounge first, because she would be going on stage soon. What the F***CK? What the hell? Our opponents are Su Xianing and the rest? Song Yao's teammates' faces were almost ferocious. Let our country's teams kill each other? Neely University is heartless. This competition is randomly matched, another person said. At this moment, another boy sighed. But I heard from that blabbermouth in our class that our opponent is clearly the M country team. She did not expect to be deceived by fake news. Song Yao, we've dragged you down. If I had known, I wouldn't have teamed you up. The other three were very embarrassed. Song Yao was stunned for a moment before she smiled. It's okay. However, as soon as he said that, someone knocked on the door of their lounge. Song Yao's team, right? The bespectacled teacher asked. Song Yao was stunned. Yes. Congratulations on advancing. All the best in the next round. With that said, the teacher turned and left. Song Yao's entire team was speechless. What was this? They had won before the competition even started. Xia Heng, did you buy a place behind our backs? The two girls looked at the boy with a rich family background. Xia Heng was speechless. Was this something he could King afford? He couldn't even buy it with his entire family's wealth, alright? Su Xianing, who was in the next group, was also confused. Why is that? Su Xianing pursed her lips. She had just seen that her opponent was Song Yao, so she had been looking forward to the moment when she would embarrass Song Yao. But how did she advance? What about Song Yao's team? There's an individual international player in the next group. According to the rules, the team that the individual international player is in will directly advance to the first 3 rounds. As soon as he finished speaking, the members of Su Xianing's group all sucked in a breath of cold air. Originally, they thought that hugging Su Xianing's thigh was already good enough. In the end, the neighboring group advanced without competing? An individual international contestant? Then why isn't our Xianing one? Some people were unwilling. Hearing this, the teacher just smiled and said, individual international contestants need to be recommended by internationally recognized scientific researchers. In our Yin University, only the former principal has this qualification. Who on earth is in the next group with such a big background? Everyone was instantly curious. I guess it's that guy. I heard that his family is very rich. Chapter 627. Hearing this, everyone fell silent. There were many scholars who looked relatively poor in the scientific research field. They really loved scientific research and did not pursue money. However, it was impossible to say that the scientific research field could not earn money. Everyone still remembered the 10 billion yuan project from a while ago. I really hope that we will still meet the next team in the next round, someone said softly. However, when Su Xianing heard this, her expression did not look too good. With a dark expression, she clenched her fists. Song Yao was really lucky. Not only could she participate in the competition for no reason, but she was also assigned to the same team as the international individual contestants. At the same time, Yu Ling, who was also looking forward to Su Xianing and Song Yao's competition, realized that something was wrong. It had been an hour, and she still hadn't seen Song Yao and Su Xianing. What on earth was going on? Yu Ling regained her senses and immediately went backstage to check the information. She found that Song Yao and Su Xianing's team had advanced directly. Her expression changed, not knowing what was going on. Then her voice was sweet. Teacher, there seem to be 2 teams here who didn't compete and advanced directly. Oh, you're talking about this. We have an international individual contestant in this competition. Her team will advance directly, and so will her opponent, the teacher said carelessly. Hearing this, Yu Ling almost couldn't maintain her expression. What kind of luck did Song Yao have? She actually encountered such a good thing. But this is also rare. It's rare to meet an international individual contestant. After all, an international individual contestant will advance to the 3rd round directly. If there are a few more international individual contestants, the competition won't be able to compete. Yu Ling suddenly had a bad feeling. She looked at the next round of competition. It was still Song Yao's team. But a few seconds later, Song Yao's team skipped over and advanced again. The international individual contestant was actually in Song Yao's team. Cool writing. Yu Ling's expression was extremely ugly. After these 3 rounds, Song Yao had completely picked up the ranking for nothing. Yu Ling took a deep breath, anger surging in her chest. She had never thought that Song Yao would be so lucky. About an hour later, Song Yao's team finally appeared. Coincidentally, they still bumped into Su Xianing's team in this round. However, Su Xianing's expression did not look too good. Their group had also passed 2 rounds of the competition before they could advance to the next round. But what about Song Yao? He had actually advanced so easily. Su Xianing bumped into Song Yao backstage and laughed coldly. You're really lucky. I don't know how you managed to cozy up to her. After that, Su Xianing left, while the people in Song Yao's team looked confused. What did he mean by Song Yao cozying up to him? They were clearly the ones who were riding on the golden coattails. This round of the competition began. Su Xianing's group appeared first. Because Su Xianing had an artist sister, she was considered half a public figure. Many people in the stadium were cheering for Su Xianing. There were even fans of Su Xianing's sister who came to hold banners. Su Xianing raised her chin and naturally accepted these gazes. At this moment, Yu Ling, who had finally waited for Song Yao's competition, was also staring fixedly at the calm Song Yao backstage. Didn't Song Yao feel inferior? But she had already become a pile of mud that anyone could step on. How could she still maintain her arrogance? Yu Ling unconsciously clenched her fists. Seeing that Song Yao was still calm and composed despite the awkwardness of no one supporting her team, she looked forward to seeing this elder young miss being trampled on even more ruthlessly. Suddenly, Chapter 628. Everyone looked up and saw an excessively beautiful girl with bright eyebrows lazily leaning against the railing. She raised her arm casually, revealing a small section of her cold and fair arm. She waved the bouquet of white roses in her hand at Song Yao casually, a smile on her lips. Bei Yunj did not speak and only looked at Song Yao with curved eyes. But in the next moment, Bei Yunj suddenly saw a big heart on the support sign from the corner of her eye. So, she narrowed her beautiful eyes and suddenly smirked. Her arm under her loose sweater bent, and she made a heart for Song Yao. Si Qingyan was speechless. Master Pei's D***Mn desire to win. She did not even want to lose. On the other hand, the fangirls below the stage who were pulling the banner for Su Xianing were inexplicably excited when they saw this scene. The girl's heart was about to fly. F***CK, what kind of scene is this? It's too cool. Is this really the friendship between 2 girls? Boo-hoo, she dotes on me so much. Why is my brain filled with dirty thoughts? Ah, that young lady in the stands is amazing. She's too good. She's killing me. All of a sudden, someone in the crowd woke up. Wait. No. This is Bei Yunj. Hearing this, many people who had watched their traveling became excited. On the stands, Si Qingyan could not help saying, Master Pei, it's not good to whistle in public. I don't want to either. Otherwise, Sister Yao won't be able to see me. Bei Yunj supported her head with one hand, her voice a little nasal. It sounded like she was feeling a little unwell. At this moment, Tich, who was in the front row, was silent for a long time before he poked Jasmine with his elbow. With teacher around, are you sure you can flirt with Song Yao? Jasmine was speechless. He did not expect to give Song Yao such a surprise. So, was he only worthy of being single? At this thought, Jasmine could not help but look at Song Yao. Seeing Song Yao's exquisite face flushed red, he felt that his biggest love rival might be his teacher. How could he catch up with her? Su Xianing glared at Bei Yunj in the distance and laughed coldly at Song Yao. Since you're so capable and can get a spot in the competition, why don't you get one for Bei Yunj too? Student Su, you should take care of yourself. Song Yao smiled elegantly and calmly, her voice not aggressive at all. I promised her that I would get first place since she's here. Listen to Yan. Su Xianing sneered. Although she said that she was dreaming, she began to be on guard. After all, there was an international player in Song Yao's team. But in the next moment, when all the contestants' information appeared on the big screen, everyone was shocked. The screen was filled with blue words, but only Song Yao's line was bright red. Contestant. Song Yao note. International individual player, F***CK, the international individual contestant is Song Yao. No wonder Song Yao could continue participating in the competition, even after being chased away by the professor. The people in Su Xianing's group were discussing in low voices. Shut up. Su Xianing glanced at them coldly, then gritted her teeth and looked at Song Yao coldly. How was this possible? Why was Song Yao the international individual contestant? No. Impossible. Yu Ling, who was also unable to accept this fact, suddenly stood up from backstage. Her face was livid and her fingertips sank into the flesh of her palm. Chapter 629. Why was Song Yao so lucky? She was clearly no longer the elder young miss of the Song family. What right did she have to become the focus of everyone's attention? How could she have such connections? Yu Ling was even more jealous and her eyes could not hide the darkness. She did not want Song Yao to win against Su Xianing. As soon as this thought appeared, Yu Ling pursed her lips and suddenly touched the screen, trying to change Song Yao's team's topic. What are you doing? The sudden voice made Yu Ling shrink her hand subconsciously. She turned around and saw Tich's cold expression. I want to see this topic. Yu Ling's heart was beating very fast, and she did not dare to look into Tich's eyes. Seeing Yu Ling's strange appearance, Tich only frowned and glanced at the screen. Song Yao and Su Xianing's topic appeared on it. Although Tich felt that this woman was strange, he did not have any evidence. He only said coldly, if you want to see it, go and see it live. The notary is not for you to play. Yu Ling's expression changed. It was also her first time being reprimanded like this. She bit her lip. I got it. Tich glanced at the screen. After confirming that there was no problem, he looked up at Yu Ling. The meaning of this gaze was obvious. When do you plan to leave? Seeing that Tich was not soft-hearted to her at all, anger rose in Yu Ling's heart. She took her work pass and left. On the stage, Yu Ling even saw Bei Yunj on the stage, and a mocking smile appeared on her lips unconsciously. Soon she walked to Bei Yunj's side. I heard that Miss Pei is also a young lady from a wealthy family who led a wandering life. She only returned to the Qin family when she was 17 years old. Bei Yunj did not even look at Yu Ling, but Yu Ling still laughed. No wonder. Ordinary socialites and young ladies probably won't be with Song Yao. Is Miss Pei so close to Song Yao because of her past experience? Bei Yunj fiddled with the cigarette she had just snatched from Si Qingyan, but when she heard Yu Ling's voice, she immediately lost her interest. Miss Yu doesn't even let go of the time for a cigarette. Bei Yunj glanced at Song Yao, who was below the stage. Seeing that she was looking over, she subconsciously hid the cigarette behind her. She didn't want this girl, who looked gentle like water, to chase after her and preach to her. The higher Miss Pei promotes Song Yao, the worse someone will make her fall. Do you think she's still the eldest young Miss Song from back then? Yu Ling laughed sarcastically. Miss Pei should know that as long as Fu Yanbai thinks that I'm dead, Song Yao will be a murderer for the rest of her life. Bei Yunj looked up, but there was a frightening coldness in her eyes. Suddenly, she laughed silently. You like to play dead so much? That's right, only an idiot like Fu Yanbai would fancy you. From the corner of her eye, Bei Yunj glanced at Song Yao, who was frowning and looking at her uneasily. Then, she threw the cigarette she had hidden into the rubbish bin beside her openly in front of Song Yao. She smiled casually. Miss Yu, are you looking for Fu Yanbai? Let's go to the Public Security Bureau of District 1 of Yunqing City. It will be quite difficult for him to come out without 2 or 3 years. As soon as he finished speaking, Yu Ling's expression changed. What did you say? Fu Yanbai went to the police station? Yu Ling rarely watched the news and did not know about this at all. After regaining her senses, Yu Ling looked up and gritted her teeth. You did it. Was this Bei Yunj crazy? Wasn't she afraid of the Fu family's revenge? Chapter 630. Bei Yunj's clear voice was gentle. I just did something that a member of society should do. Yu Ling widened her eyes. She really never thought that someone would be able to get Fu Yanbai into the police station. Don't keep appearing in front of me. I'm not very friendly either. Bei Yunj smirked, her lazy eyes full of high spirits. She approached Yu Ling step by step, her warm palm suddenly holding her neck gently, but her eyes were cold and ruthless. Her smiling voice landed in Yu Ling's ears, but it sounded like a voice from hell. You won't die if you fall from here. But if you're unlucky, it's hard to say if you'll break a bone. Don't you think so? Bei Yunj. The back of Yu Ling's head turned cold. Before she could warn her, she was suddenly pressed by the hand on her neck, and her waist hit the railing. This made Yu Ling's face pale, and she did not dare to speak anymore. I'm just joking with Miss Yu. Don't be afraid. Bei Yunj suddenly retracted her hand, her eyes brightening. She slowly took out a tissue and wiped her hands. However, Miss Yu, you heard that I returned to the Qin family from outside. How could you not know that I was in a mental hospital before? Hearing this, Yu Ling's scalp suddenly turned numb as she remembered this. Bei Yunj did have records of being hospitalized in a mental hospital. Even if Bei Yunj really pushed her down, the Qin family could use this to ensure that Bei Yunj would be safe. After all, she heard that the fake young lady from before had been pushed down the stairs by Bei Yunj more than once. Thinking of this, Yu Ling immediately felt a chill run down her spine. She almost ran away from the high platform. At the same time, the competition was continuing. Bei Yunj turned around and walked downstairs herself. There was a huge disparity in strength in the competition on stage. It was almost a one-sided suppression by Su Xianing's team. Bei Yunj glanced at the results on the screen calmly. 2-7. Su Xianing's team was 7 and Song Yao's team could not catch up. However, at this time Song Yao had not appeared at all. Her teammates were answering the questions. Teacher? Jasmine was originally watching from the sidelines, but when he saw Bei Yunj coming down from the high platform, he immediately went to Bei Yunj's side and shouted in a low voice. Okay, don't be noisy. Bei Yunj responded faintly. She pulled up her hoodie and pursed her red lips. He looked unapproachable. However, Jasmine, who was already familiar with Bei Yunj, also noticed that something was wrong. Teacher, are you nervous? A moment later, Bei Yunj looked at him indifferently. Immediately, Jasmine froze, knowing that he had asked something he shouldn't have. We will win. Don't worry. Jasmine immediately handed Bei Yunj a bottle of ice water and fawned over her. On the stage, Song Yao had noticed Bei Yunj at some point in time. She stared at Bei Yunj, who had just opened the ice cap. Bei Yunj paused. A moment later, Bei Yunj stuffed it to Jasmine and pulled her hat lower, deliberately not watching Song Yao's competition. Song Yao was speechless. If this fellow didn't do it on purpose, she would take her surname. At this moment, Jasmine also felt his teacher's undisguised vengeance. It turned out that his teacher also had the childishness of her age. A few minutes later, Jasmine leaned closer and reminded her kindly. Shake her and she's about to catch up. Chapter 631. Jasmine did not see that Bei Yunj had been pinching her loose sleeve with her left hand. Not only Su Xianing, even Professor Wei's face turned green. He had carefully paved the path for Su Xianing, but in the end, it was suppressed by a student from the ordinary class not long ago. Professor Wei's expression was ugly. At the thought of Song Yao's recommendation, he could not help but take a deep breath. Professor Wei, what's wrong? Suddenly, A colleague who saw Professor Wei leave shouted. However, Professor Wei did not seem to hear him and left without looking back. Soon, in the first real competition, Song Yao successfully advanced. In the next few rounds, Song Yao also won beautifully. However, when she met Cheng Zihuai in the last round of the competition, she started to feel powerless. Cheng Zihuai was indeed very talented in mathematics. In addition, the Qingchong Computing Center had been nurturing Cheng Zihuai carefully, so his strength had long surpassed his peers. Student Song, I'm sorry. I can't give in to you in this competition. Cheng Zihuai's face was cold and arrogant, but he was polite to the girls, causing all the girls present to have a good impression of him. You don't have to be polite, Student Cheng. After all, we're all aiming for first place. Song Yao's lips were still curved, but her simple words made everyone present feel inexplicably hot-blooded. Such a gentle young lady turned out to be so arrogant. There was too much of a contrast. A dark look flashed past Cheng Zihuai's eyes. At the same time, he glanced at Bei Yunj below the stage and revealed a trace of mockery. Bei Yunj's friend does have a bit of Bei Yunj's temper. The team member beside Song Yao looked at Cheng Zihuai opposite her. He seemed to have a grudge against Song Yao's friend, and felt even more doomed. This time, it was so difficult to catch up with the score. They probably couldn't make it. The notification light on the screen turned from green to red. Wenting Pavilion, the original medium difficulty questions had been changed to high difficulty questions. The type of questions had not appeared much in the past few years. The professors from all over the world were speechless. Who the F***CK was so stupid to use the newly deciphered formula in the competition? Which high school student would be so bored as to read the questions and thesis? F***CK, who is this long video for? Sorry to disturb you. I felt like I was reading a heavenly book just now. What has appeared now? Even though the people present did not understand the questions in front of them, the feeling of taking up almost half of the screen made their scalps tingle. Many people were already afraid of mathematics. When they saw this scene, they were so immersed that they almost suffocated. Was this a problem that a human should solve? Other than the professors, only Jasmine and Tich were able to answer their teachers' questions with ease. After all, every time Bei Yunj released something, they would be the first to pay attention to it. Their teachers had always wanted their students to develop in an all-round way. On the field, almost all the contestants wanted to kneel before these two questions. Both Song Yao and Cheng Zihuai were silent. It was as if the competition had stopped. However, at this moment, only Song Yao suddenly remembered that when Bei Yunj was bored the last time, he had pressed her to explain this topic for the entire afternoon. Song Yao barely understood. After all, the difficulty of this question was not within her tolerance range. Chapter 632. Jasmine was speechless. If it was his teacher's handiwork, then wouldn't it be completely ruined? Fortunately, the questions on the left and right were all new types, and were not more difficult than Song Yao's. Fortunately, it's my question. Bei Yunj had taken off her hat at some point in time, and laughed leisurely. Jasmine turned to look at Bei Yunj, speechless. Did you misunderstand your question? What did he mean by fortunately? It was his question. Song Yao will definitely win. Bei Yunj opened a bottle of iced cola with one hand, and drank a few mouthfuls after saying that lazily. Jasmine was speechless. Where did his confidence come from? If his teacher wasn't Bei Yunj, he might not have been able to solve this question immediately. Then, just as Jasmine was about to say something, he suddenly heard a voice behind him. That young lady is answering. Isn't she too amazing? This question feels like a heavenly book. Jasmine turned around instinctively, and saw the gentle-looking girl swiping her slender fingers across the screen. On the big screen, her answer process was gradually shown. Jasmine was stunned for a long time before he turned back to look at Bei Yunj. Teacher, I've taught her the basic questions, Bei Yunj said slowly. Jasmine was speechless. Of all the people present, only she could classify this question as a basic question. At this moment, Cheng Zihuai, who was beside her, did not know how to answer the question. When he turned around and saw Song Yao, who was focused on answering the question, his expression turned even uglier. Would a student from an ordinary class really know how to solve such questions? After about 20 minutes, Song Yao finally finished writing all the questions. After checking, she submitted the answers. Soon, the original score of 1013 immediately became 1813. With this question, he really overtook the car at the bend. Damn, isn't this young lady too fierce? It's my first time seeing a beautiful young lady who can do math questions so beautifully. The audience exclaimed, and their eyes were focused on the calm Song Yao on stage. At this moment, Yuling's gaze was sinister as she bit her lower lip. Suddenly, Yuling, you didn't die? When Su Xianing saw Yuling, she was stunned for a moment before she flew into a rage out of humiliation. Yuling didn't die. Then why didn't Yuling come back in these 2 to 3 years? The next moment, Su Xianing noticed that Yuling was still wearing Neely University's uniform. She sneered. So he went to hide from Neely? Su Xianing said sarcastically. Do you know about the Song family's bankruptcy? When Yuling was asked this question, her palms immediately became drenched in sweat. A dark look flashed across her eyes. She quickly blurted out the words that she had thought of earlier. Xianing, I didn't mean to not come back. I didn't dare to come back. Why wouldn't he dare to come back? President Fu ruined the Song family because of you. Why don't you dare to come back? Su Xianing also hated Song Yao, but she knew very well that Yuling also had a grudge against Song Yao. Did you see that? She's the one who recommended you. A glint flashed across Yuling's eyes as she spoke slowly. What do you mean? Su Xianing was already in a bad mood, and her eyebrows were even colder now. Who recommended her? Yuling asked. Ah. Su Xianing frowned and answered impatiently. Chapter 633. Just now, who was the first to draw up the formula that Song Yao got right? Yuling's words stunned Su Xianing. It was, but very quickly Su Xianing said coldly, that's impossible. People in the scientific research field cherished their reputation the most. Song Yao was not anyone. So how could she take this risk for Song Yao? I heard from the mathematics department professor in our school that they have been trying to contact each other recently. Coincidentally, when Song Yao was answering the question appeared. And it happened to be Song Yao's recommendation. Don't you think it's strange? Yuling observed Su Xianing's expression and asked. Yuling, you've already harmed Song Yao enough. Su Xianing furrowed her eyebrows. She hated Song Yao and couldn't get used to seeing her high and mighty appearance. However, she would never destroy Song Yao's family. This was too ruthless. But I didn't do this, Yuling retorted. Then she bit her lip, her eyes filled with stubbornness. Do you think I told you because I can't stand Song Yao? I just don't want you to be treated unfairly because someone else took a shortcut. But I lost to her. Yes, I lost to her. Unexpectedly at this moment, Su Xianing clenched her fists but was unusually calm. She had her pride. She really loved mathematics and would not use such a despicable method to slander her opponent. Yuling, I used to hate those teachers who said that girls were not as good as boys in mathematics. I also hated those students who were usually mischievous and suddenly learned well, and the teachers praised them for being smart. In this world, I admire the strong and respect those with perseverance. I hate Song Yao because she's high and mighty. Back then, she didn't like my goodwill, so I targeted her. Su Xianing laughed. I like to go against her, but it doesn't mean that I want her to live a life worse than death. Yuling's eyes flashed and her expression was a little ugly. She had never thought that the person she used to use as a tool would say such words. Put away your thoughts too. She's not to be trifled with. Do you think she's Beiyunj beside Song Yao? She doesn't even write her name in her exercise book. She's just a slacker? Su Xianing laughed and her tone was cold. Since you're back, I've let Song Yao down for deliberately targeting her previously. I can't apologize. I'll avoid her in the future. On the stage, Yuling was left trembling and her pretty face was slightly distorted. These people were all equally lofty and hypocritical. They were all equally disgusting. In the final competition, Cheng Zihuai's team had more correct answers than Song Yao. However, because of the extra points, Song Yao was one question ahead, so Song Yao won this competition by a narrow margin. The venue was filled the venue. Pei Yunj also carried the flowers backstage and waited for Song Yao. Out of the corner of his eye, he happened to see Su Xianning's embarrassed expression. Su Xianning's expression was ferocious for a moment before she walked towards Pei Yunj aggressively and threw a book that looked like it was about to be torn apart in front of Pei Yunj. Trash, she's Jiu to read. You use asterisk asterisk asterisk. Su Xianning was so angry that her face almost distorted and flushed red. Give my book to Song Yao. This was Su Xianning's 16th birthday present. Su Xianning's father was a slightly famous mathematician. For his daughter, he had written this book for more than half a year. There was only one book. She doesn't need it. Pei Yunj glanced at it and said slowly. Chapter 634. Hearing this, Su Xianning laughed even more. Her tone was sarcastic and her eyes were arrogant. Do you think Song Yao is like you? She doesn't even write her name in the exercise book. Pei Yunj raised his eyebrows and glanced at her, still looking casual. I heard that you seem to be in Hengda, and your results are not bad. Su Xianning looked like she was not afraid of being beaten up and smiled coldly, but in fact, she left quickly as she said those harsh words, afraid that Pei Yunj would catch up to her. If I see you in Yin University in the future, I'll report you too. You're shameless to let someone do your homework for you. Pei Yunj was speechless. All along, Pei Yunj did not have a good impression of this student, Su Xianning. She knew how to scheme and deliberately target Song Yao. She did not look very smart. These 3 points were all in line with the type of person Pei Yunj usually wanted to teach her a lesson. But today, this person was quite strange. Pei Yunj turned around and lifted his eyelids. He reached out and casually flipped through a few pages of the book that Su Xianning did not take away. Never meet at the end. Pei Yunj's slender fingers slid down gently, and a familiar name appeared. Pei Yunj was speechless. Yunj. Song Yao's voice suddenly came from the door, making Pei Yunj's fingers tremble slightly. She looked casual and quickly moved her hand away. Is this yours? Song Yao asked instinctively. Pei Yunj said, Su Xianning gave it to you. Song Yao was stunned for a moment and pursed her lips. After a long time, she was finally willing to reach out to flip through this book that was not considered new. I know this book. I think her father gave it to her as a birthday present. Song Yao's pleasant voice was still calm. Why is she suddenly being nice to me? Is it because she likes it? However, after thinking about it, something did not seem right. Song Yao also knew how much Su Xianning loved this book. Pei Yunj's eyebrows moved, as if she suddenly understood the meaning of Su Xianning's words. She looked down and guessed slowly. I don't think so. Is she apologizing to you? He was even hiding from Song Yao and did not dare to meet her. He looked as if he had a guilty conscience. Song Yao was silent for a long time and did not mention this topic again. Oh, all right. Then Song Yao suddenly took out a box of cold medicine from the side. She tore open one of the packets and found a clean disposable paper cup to pour it in. Wait for me here. I'll get you a cup of hot water. With that said, Song Yao took the cup carefully and hurried to get the hot water. Pei Yunj? Question mark. Not long after, Song Yao handed the cold medicine to Pei Yunj. She pursed her lips and suppressed the smile on her lips. I poured less water, so you can finish it in one go. Pei Yunj was silent for a while. Have you ever thought that this will be even more painful? Song Yao was speechless. In the end, Pei Yunj still frowned. Her beautiful face was full of rejection, and she quickly finished the medicine. Song Yao hurriedly handed the other cup of warm water to Pei Yunj. Seeing that Pei Yunj was still frowning impatiently after drinking it, Song Yao's lips curved unconsciously. Soon, the girl who saw Song Yao buy a bag of snacks saw Song Yao walk out of the lounge with a beautiful and lazy girl beside her. She was chewing on the candy lazily, holding the snack she had gotten with one hand and putting the other in her pocket as she walked calmly. The girl was speechless. It turned out that there were really adults who liked such overly sweet snacks. Chapter 635. Because Song Yao had gotten first place in this competition, the mathematics department of Yin University was already giving Song Yao an olive branch. After all, Song Yao had almost won all the difficult questions at the back. How could Yin University be willing to let go of such a talent? On the other hand, Cheng Zihuai's expression was extremely ugly. After being reprimanded by Hong Chongjin, he hated this person who had never shown her face, but had gone against him time and time again. When they were choosing students back then, she did not like him and chose Jianxi. And in this competition, he was defeated by Song Yao, who had personally recommended him. If she wasn't purposely going against him, then it meant that he really didn't get along with her. At the Computing Institute, after Bei Yunj returned, she was still working on the second project she had prepared. However, because the second project involved a field that Bei Yunj had not paid much attention to in the past, the progress was a little slow. In the afternoon, Bei Yunj took out a large box of information from the Computing Institute's inventory. She placed them all on the ground and flipped through them one by one. At this moment, Nance pushed open the door and entered. His eyelids twitched. "Yunj, what are you doing?" Bei Yunj did not even look up. "I'm checking some information." Although Bei Yunj did not agree to be Nance's student, after spending some time together, Bei Yunj and Nance's relationship was not bad. "Let me take a look." Nance had just approached when he saw Bei Yunj flipping through the books at a frightening speed. "You are like this when you read books?" With that said, Bei Yunj flipped the page again and answered indifferently. In this aspect, Bei Yunj was indeed enviable. She could almost read 10 lines at a glance and remember everything she saw. She had an amazing memory. Seeing that Nance was silent for a long time, Bei Yunj hesitated for a moment before saying slowly, "Most of the content in these books is actually quite repetitive, so it looks quite simple." This explanation still made Nance feel complicated. No wonder she could achieve such an achievement at such a young age. "Let me see how far your project has progressed." Nance walked to Bei Yunj's side. Bei Yunj did not mind Nance coming to take a look. Instead, she gave him a simple introduction to this project. Soon, Nance proposed several concepts that Bei Yunj did not know much about, and taught Bei Yunj how to improve it. After talking for about half an hour, Bei Yunj felt that this project was much easier. She looked up at Nancy. "Are you very knowledgeable in this area?" "Not bad." Nance nodded his head, and said Bei Yunj, Bei Yunj, Bei Yunj's, Bei Yunj, and Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj's side, Bei Yunj Ji, Bei Yunj's, Bei Yunj. Nancy struck while the iron was hot. "Gore, why don't you reconsider?" Bei Yunj, Bei. Bei Yunj had also heard from Zhong Shenglin that Nance wanted to take her in as a student without knowing who she was. "I'm already so old, and I always hope that someone can inherit my legacy. Of course, I chose you because from the beginning, this old man prefers girls like you who are full of evil tricks." After a short silence, Bei Yunj smirked and looked at Nance with a smile. "Can I think about it?" Hearing this, Nancy's entire body stiffened, and she began to get excited again. Chapter 636. Okay, think about it carefully. We must consider it carefully. Nancy was almost in tears. Was it easy for him to stay in the Computing Institute for so long? Zhong Shenglin almost chased him away with a broom. "Okay." Bei Yunj nodded and sat down in front of the computer again. At this moment, Nancy happily leaned over. "Guer, is there anything you don't understand?" No." Bei Yunj's simple sentence made Nancy completely quiet down. "Nancy." Some time ago, he secretly asked Zhong Shenglin about the research topic of Bei Yunj's project. After that, he also searched for information day and night, just to make his presence felt in front of Bei Yunj. Okay. After leaving, Nancy began to wonder if his standards were not good enough. Therefore, when Zhong Shenglin returned, he found that Nancy had changed into clean clothes and was wearing a white coat, doing experiments seriously. In the end, he had put in so much at once, but Bei Yunj could remember all of it. The smile on Nancy's face was a little stiff. He felt that with Bei Yunj's speed of understanding, he would finish his capital very soon. "Then I'll go out first." "Guer, take your time. I've been flipping through books for 2 to 3 weeks just to let go, or feel that I'm knowledgeable and qualified to be her teacher." Nancy looked up and smiled. "But now I realize that her ability to accept things is too strong. If I don't continue to do research, even if she acknowledges me as her teacher, I'll have to be fired in less than half a year." Zhong Shenglin. "Nancy, what's wrong with you?" Zhong Xinglin could not help but ask. Gu'er just agreed to consider me as her teacher. Zhong Xinglin was puzzled. Isn't that good? You've been flipping through books for 2 to 3 weeks for Gu'er's project. Isn't it just to trick Gu'er into becoming your disciple? Back then, Nancy was also an existence that was difficult to surpass in the computing field. Moreover, Nancy did have many similarities with Bai Yunji. Nancy had won many awards in the past. Not only in the computer field, but she had also won many awards in medicine and physics. Therefore, Zhong Xinglin actually agreed that Nancy should be Bai Yunji's teacher. In this way, the road to Bai Yunji would be easier in the future. Why bother? He was already so old, but in order to take in a disciple, he was torturing himself like this. However, seeing that Nancy was finally motivated to continue her research, Zhong Xinglin was quite happy. This was to prevent any unforeseen events from happening. However, since Bai Yunji's identity was a secret, Zhong Xinglin still advised Nancy not to reveal it at this time. In the end, the two of them decided to hold the apprenticeship banquet after the college entrance exam. After all, Bai Yunji was still too young. Once her identity was made public, it would be easy for her to cause a dispute. But if Nancy was there, who would dare to have any ideas about Bai Yunji? A few days later, Bai Yunji agreed to acknowledge Nancy as her teacher. When Nancy heard that Bai Yunji had agreed personally, he almost wanted to drag her to hold the apprenticeship banquet on the spot. However, at this moment, Nancy was already grinning from ear to ear. A few minutes later, he sent a message to all his old friends, saying that he had found a very outstanding successor. However, not long after, the big shots in the scientific research field who were annoyed by his message mercilessly blocked Nancy. So what if he found an heir? Could his heir go to heaven? Chapter 637. The next day, Bai Yunji's second project had almost been made public in the industry, causing a commotion. As for the sale of patents, it had always been Director He of the Computing Institute who handled it. Bai Yunji did not pay much attention to it. Gu'er, what do you think about our patent fee? Director He's face was flushed red at the thought of selling patents to Bai Yunji. Usually, when he went out for business, people would only pay attention to the patents in the institute. Those who bought the patents were all bosses who paid for them, and did not dare to offend them. But now the one selling the patent rights was the one from the 10 billion project back then. At this moment, it was all the big companies calling to get close to him. Double it. Bai Yunji did not hesitate. Director He's smile stiffened. Wasn't this a little too ruthless? Would that group of capitalists agree? Actually, Delaney has already mentioned this to me, Bai Yunji said casually. When her second project had just started, Delaney had already come over and offered to pay more for the patent rights. He agreed? Director He was a little hesitant. Bai Yunji hummed in response. Although the depreciation of country R's currency was low, it was normal for country R to be willing to pay a high price for the patent rights. But wasn't it too ruthless to double it? Delaney was also a cunning businessman. How could he agree to double the fee so readily? Gu'er, how did you get Delaney to agree to this fee? Bai Yunji's eyebrows twitched when she heard this. She looked up at him again. He didn't want it, so I bought it for someone else. Director He was speechless. Bai Yunji smiled playfully. They were willing to buy my second project because the first patent I sold to Delaney made the Delaney Group's market value soar. They were not doing charity, and neither was Bai Yunji. Now that the computing industry was developing rapidly, there were many markets that could be exploited. They had seen how much Delaney had received as the first person to eat crabs. How could the others not be tempted? Even if Bai Yunji wanted a sky-high patent fee, in their eyes, it was worth a gamble. All right. Director He nodded and looked at the current buyers that he had selected. He casually said, if that's the case, there should be a lot of foreign companies coming to buy the right to use it. As for China, it's probably the Hua Corporation and Hua Corporation. Bai Yunji suddenly interrupted him. Director He nodded. The Hua Corporation's scientific research department has expressed their desire to buy the patent rights a long time ago. Moreover, with the Hua Corporation's assets, they can afford your offer the most. Faced with Bai Yunji's sky-high patent fees, Other medium-sized and large companies would probably be out of business after they bought the patent. At this moment, Dinhe added, "But it doesn't matter. We still have Delaney. Wait. Whatever the Hua Corporation wants, I can give it to them." Bei Yunj chuckled. His seductive eyes were lazy and carried a lazy smile. Dinhe? 2 days later. Hua Corporation. Bei Yunj had just arrived when he saw a hot foreign beauty standing beside the man in the office. Bei Yunj narrowed his beautiful eyes. He leaned against the door and watched the two of them chat calmly. Not long after Hua Shidu and Bei Yunj finished chatting, he glanced around and saw the unhappy young lady at the door. Chapter 638. Hua Shidu's gaze landed on her unwaveringly. The man's ink-like eyes were noble. He said in amusement, "Why are you in a daze? Are you possessed?" As soon as he finished speaking, the blonde foreign beauty beside her also turned her head and saw the girl in front of her clearly. The girl's eyes were bright and languid. She had black hair and red lips. She was excessively beautiful and very recognizable. She was wearing a simple white shirt and a slim waist. Her slender and straight legs were so fair that they dazzled people. A hint of surprise flashed across the foreign beauty's eyes. Then, she saw that the girl was very bold and sat on the armrest of the sofa beside the man. Bei Yunj licked her lips. Her eyes were still clear. She smiled and leaned closer to the man, as if she was deliberately tickling his heart. "I'm not possessed. I just want to try bumping into your chest." Hua Shidu's originally lazy and carefree posture paused. His eyes darkened and even the light gradually disappeared. Soon, the slender and well-defined hand on the document casually closed the document. Bei Yunj looked up and saw Hua Shidu looking at her with a faint smile. "Have I spoiled you too much usually?" Originally, he thought that the young lady had not taken the college entrance examination yet. For the sake of the young lady, he could tolerate it for a while more. But now, this young lady really thought that his tolerance was so good. She was teasing him without any restraint. At this moment, Bei Yunj also felt an inexplicable dangerous atmosphere. In the next moment, she heard the foreign beauty beside her smile tactfully. "Mr. Hua, continue with your work. See you at the meeting." "Okay," the man replied indifferently. Before the foreign beauty left, she even closed the door kindly. Sure, this was very dangerous. 52 Literature. Bei Yunj looked up, and did not dare to look at Hua Shidu for some reason. "Brother, are you angry?" Hearing this, the man did not say anything. Bei Yunj took his attitude as tacit agreement, and felt frustrated for no reason. So it was not that Hua Shidu did not like women, but that he liked the looks of foreign women? Thinking of this, Bei Yunj glanced at him and said, "Got it. In the future." The next moment, Bei Yunj stood up from the sofa, but her wrist was suddenly grabbed. Before she could react, a strong arm suddenly wrapped around her waist, and she fell directly into the man's arms. "Bei Yunj, do you know what you're doing?" Hua Shida's deep voice suddenly sounded in her ears. "What do these mean to me?" Bei Yunj's slender waist was held and she could not move. This was the first time she had heard the man say it so directly. Her heart felt as if it had been scalded. The girl's ears turned red, and she was unconsciously nervous. Seeing that Bei Yunj was unable to speak for a long time for the first time, the corners of the man's upturned eyes were seductive, and he returned to his usual lazy and carefree self. His low and hoarse laughter landed beside her ear, as if he was deliberately teasing her eardrums. His warm and pleasant breath pressed against her back, making it impossible for her to avoid it. His voice was low and magnetic. "Yunyan, answer me. Do you want me?" Hearing this, Bei Yunj's heart seemed to have been poked by something. Her heart was beating wildly, and she was panicking. However, at this moment, the man's low and hoarse laughter still carried his unique and cold aura, making her feel annoyed and inexplicably at ease. Chapter 639. Bei Yunj's heart tightened, and she instinctively hooked her arms around the man's neck. She looked up and saw the man's smooth and well-defined jawline. It was inexplicably seductive. It made Bei Yunj feel an indescribable impulse. After coming back to her senses, Bei Yunj felt the man's unconcealed gaze, and realized what she had been thinking about just now. Her heart beat faster for some reason. After Huashidu placed her on the desk, she wanted to leave the desk quickly. I haven't asked you to come down yet. As the man finished speaking, Bei Yunj was held by the waist by the man again. He lifted her gently and she sat back down. Bei Yunj. Was this a tyrant's dictatorship? Huashidu saw that the young lady was unhappy and laughed softly. He stretched out his hand casually and helped the young lady tidy her black hair. You don't have to answer that question now. The man's tone was casual, but the magnetic voice that fell in her ears almost burned her heart. But Yunyan has to know that brother is waiting for you. He was really unwilling to hand this child over to someone else. 10 minutes later. The heat on Bei Yunj's face faded. She sat in front of the CEO's desk and looked like she was seriously writing a mock paper. However, not long after, Bei Yunj came back to her senses and saw a familiar name written in the blank space of her poem. Huashidu. Bei Yunj. She was really possessed. Bei Yunj instinctively looked up at Huashidu and immediately crossed out the 3 words she had just written. Not long after, Sung Su walked in from the door and saw his tall and straight master. He could only sit on the sofa and work on his laptop. He turned around and saw that the person beside the CEO's desk was Bei Yunj. She was lazily writing questions with a pen in one hand and supporting her chin with the other. She looked like she was daydreaming. Sing Su. He doted on Miss Pei too much. Master Du was really more attentive than the Qin family's parents. However, only Miss Pei could make Master Du sit on the sofa and work. Master Du, this is the information for the meeting. Take a look. Sung Su came back to his senses and immediately handed the information to Huashidu. After that, when Huashidu was flipping through the information, Sung Su turned around and saw Bei Yunj holding her cheek with one hand and admiring Huashida's side profile without restraint. He was not in the mood to do the questions at all. Sung Su. Should he abhor evil and report Miss Pei? Yun right well. Suddenly, the man's low and magnetic voice sounded. Only then did Bei Yunj lower her head and continue to answer the questions. It had to be said. As long as Huashidu was in her line of sight, it would be difficult for her to concentrate on her work. She could not help but take a few more glances at him. Miss Pei's results seem to have improved a lot. We should congratulate you. We should congratulate you. Sung Su tried to find a topic to ease the atmosphere. However, after Bei Yunj thanked him, she didn't say anything else. The atmosphere remained cold and awkward. That's enough. Let Morden take care of the other points. After flipping through it, Huashidu casually threw the things on the coffee table. Okay, Director He from the Computing Institute will be coming over today to talk about the patent rights of DX technology. Should we let Mr. Morden come along? Sing Su asked. Yes, Huashidu replied. At this moment, Bei Yunj's long eyelashes fluttered and she glanced at them. Director He is coming today? Chapter 640. Okay. Bei Yunj responded. She was quite surprised. Her second project was still in the research and development stage. Were these people so fast? Just as Bei Yunj was thinking about whether she should send a message to Director He, Sung Yu walked in quickly from the door. Master Du Miss Pei. Sung Yu didn't seem to be shocked by Bei Yunj sitting at the CEO's desk. However, her gaze lingered between Huashidu and Bei Yunj, and there was an inexplicable feeling of sparks flying. She looked like a frontline personnel who were in love with a couple. After Sung Yu came back to her senses, she revealed a professional smile. Master Du, Mr. Morden has also arrived at our company's conference hall. Director He of the Computing Institute will arrive in 5 minutes. Okay. Huashidu stood up and slowly buttoned his sleeves. He looked refined and noble, and his abstinence made one's legs go weak. Inform everyone that the meeting will start in 10 minutes. Understood. Sing Su nodded. Huashidu turned around and walked to Bei Yunj's side. He gently pinched her chin, and the corners of his thin red lips curled up. He rubbed the corner of her lips with his warm fingers as if nothing had happened. For some reason, there was an ambiguous feeling that made one blush and their hearts race. Stay here obediently. Don't torture me. You can eat whatever you want tonight. Bei Yunj. Seeing Huashidu walk out of the office, Sung Yu leaned closer to Bei Yunj and asked softly, Does Miss Pei like it? Bei Yunji's eyes flashed as she looked at Sung Yu. What? Today's meeting is mainly about the DX technology. You might come too. If Miss Pei likes it, we can wait at the rest area along the corridor later. Sung Yu remembered that Bei Yunji had gone to the Computing Institute before. Now most of the people who knew about the Computing Institute were there because of this. Some time ago, this person had shocked the entire academic circle. Bei Yunji thought of something and suddenly smiled. Then let's go now. As soon as she finished speaking, before Sung Yu could react, Bei Yunji had already stood up and walked out. Miss, what if Master Du finds out? Sung Yu's eyelids twitched, and she quickly pulled Bei Yunji back. He won't be angry even if he knows. Bei Yunji let Sung Yu hold her hand, but she didn't stop walking. Sung Yu. It's not that I won't be angry, but I won't be angry with you. However, her fate was uncertain. He knows that you can't control me. Bei Yunji smiled. Sung Yu. That's true. She was not as capable as Master Du when it came to people that even Master Du could not control. Soon. Sung Yu and Bei Yunji had just sat down when they saw two people walk in. Sung Yu accidentally saw it and her eyes lit up. She subconsciously held Bei Yunji's hand tightly. Bei Yunji felt a sharp pain in her arm. After Sung Yu regained her senses, she realized what she had just done and hurriedly said, Miss, I'm sorry, I didn't do it on purpose, she continued. That man just now was too good-looking. He's like a refined scum. Bei Yunji looked up and noticed the tall Si Qingyan in a black trench coat. Si Qingyan was indeed good-looking. Director, Brother Yan. Bei Yunji called out. At this moment, Si Qingyan and Director He turned around and saw Bei Yunji in the resting area. Why are you here? Si Qingyan asked instinctively. However, Director He immediately recalled what Bei Yunji had said last time. Chapter 641. I can give the Hua Corporation whatever they want. Dean He was speechless. So she was already related to the Hua Corporation. Suddenly, Sung Yu asked, Are you? Si Qingyan turned around and saw Sung Yu beside Bei Yunji. She was looking at him with a red face and sparkling eyes. She was quite cute. I'm not. Si Qingyan smiled and looked at the silent Bei Yunji beside him. He said meaningfully, However, you should know who I am in the future. When Sung Yu heard this, she was stunned. Why would she know? The next moment, Sung Yu turned to look at Bei Yunji. Miss Pei, how do you know Dean He and this gentleman? I happened to meet him previously. Bei Yunji glanced at Dean He and then at Si Qingyan. This is a professor from the computing department of Yin University. I attended a special class at Yin University before. Si Qingyan couldn't help but look at Bei Yunji. She was really a fox. What she said was true. But did they know each other at Yin University? I see. Miss is really amazing. You actually attended a special class at Yin University. Sung Yu praised. Bei Yunji replied casually. Yes, I was chased out because I asked my classmates to copy my homework. Sung Yu was speechless. For a moment, Sung Yu did not know how to answer. Si Qingyan pursed his lips. This was not the first time he had seen Bei Yunji bully someone like this. We're going to a meeting. Do you want to go? Si Qingyan asked casually. Dean He, who was beside him, secretly poked him with his elbow. What was going on? 186 Chinese website. No one knew who Bei Yunji was. What if someone noticed where she was going? However, it was obvious that Dean He's worry was unnecessary. Can I? After Bei Yunji asked, she looked at Sung Yu. Her beautiful eyes were exceptionally clear, making it impossible to reject her. Sung Yu said, Shall I ask Master Du? Soon. When Sung Yu brought the three of them to the conference hall, Sung Yu saw that the long table in the conference hall was filled with people. Her eyelids twitched. She braced herself and said, Master Du or Miss Pei. Brother, can I listen in on your meeting? Bei Yunji interrupted Sung Yu, which made Sung Yu completely relieved. When Huashida heard this, he raised his eyes and casually glanced at Bei Yunji. Then, just as everyone lowered their heads, thinking that their boss would definitely refuse, suddenly, the man's low and magnetic voice sounded nonchalantly. Does anyone else mind? Everyone. Since when did their president walk into a romantic drama? What do you mean by do other people mind? Do you remember that you even rejected office romances? One of the older vice presidents frowned. We have a distinguished guest here. This is not appropriate. The Computing Institute is a prestigious research institute in the academic circle. President Hua, shouldn't we respect Director He and Professor Si a little? Suddenly Bei Yunj looked at Director He and Si Qingyan. Director, do you mind? Dean He immediately forced a smile. How could this be? This project was all hers. How would he dare to mind? Si Qingyan lied without blushing. This young lady might become one of us in the future. Why would we mind? Everyone. What did this mean? According to their information just now, this good-looking man was a core member of the Computing Institute and a professor at Yun University. Chapter 642. On the other hand, the recruitment conditions of the Computing Institute were famous for being picky in the industry. Why would he take a fancy to an ordinary girl? However, when everyone turned around and saw Bei Yunj's face clearly, a trace of surprise flashed past their eyes. Was Master Du's sister that good-looking? However, most people still could not believe that this girl was Master Du's biological sister. They had a feeling that this girl and their Master Du were a couple for some reason. Ahem, this conversation doesn't involve any secrets. Mr. Morden, what do you think? Dean He turned around and asked the CEO who had come all the way from overseas. I have no objections. Morden shrugged and said with a smile. He was well aware of the Hua Corporation's power and influence. As for the Computing Institute, he still did not know if he would give them the DX project. After all, he heard that Delaney was also competing for the second project. Seeing that no one had any objections, the vice president's expression was ugly, but he did not say anything else. Bei Yunj naturally moved a chair and sat beside Huashidu. At this moment, the rest of the people finally dared to size up Bei Yunj. Many people's hearts were in turmoil. Wasn't this girl too good-looking? Sitting beside their president, there was really a sense of déjà vu. Seeing that he was there, Bei Yunj did not go to Hoshida's side. At this moment, the man's aloof peach blossom eyes curled into a nonchalant arc as he leisurely glanced at her. Then, in the conference room, the man's low and lazy voice drifted into everyone's ears with an inexplicable hint of a smile. I'm sorry everyone. I brought a family member this time. With that said, the hearts of the female staff present thumped wildly, and they almost couldn't keep their expressions straight. These words were too cool. How could their unreasonable president say it himself? Huashida glanced at her carelessly before his thin lips suddenly curled up. I'll try my best to arrange for my family member next time. Bei Yunj was speechless. At this moment, Dean He was in a completely different mood from everyone. It turned out that Yunj had such a relationship with the rumored youngest president of the Hua Corporation. No wonder she was so biased towards the Hua Corporation. His attitude towards others was completely different from his attitude towards the Hua Corporation. Not long after, Hua Shidu downloaded a movie from his computer and gave a Bluetooth earpiece to Bei Yunj. Let her watch the movie in peace. Dean He and Si Qingyan also saw with their own eyes that their usually unruly Master Pei actually obediently put on his earphones and watched a movie by himself. Wasn't Master Pei being too obedient? What does Director He think about the DX technology project? Soon, Huashida's staff started to ask questions. After Director He snapped back to reality, he immediately said, the DX project is actually our Computing Institute's key project this year. As you all know, the patent rights to the first project were bought by the Delaney Group. Director He flipped through the data that he had long memorized. He raised his head and smiled. 5 years 50 billion yuan. Of course, it's in our nation's currency. At this moment, everyone fell silent. Speaking of expensive, no one was more expensive than the patent fees. However, even if the price was high, there were still people who came forward one after another. Then, what's your ideal fee this time? Morden probed. Director He smiled. We do scientific research. Actually, we don't know much about business matters. Chapter 643. Everyone was speechless. He was too humble. You scientific researchers have already sucked blood from capitalists. Do you know that? Actually, we're more sincere this time. Can we double the price? He probed. Actually, there was a reason for He's lack of confidence in this conversation. The last time he mentioned the Hua Corporation, a certain someone started to have no bottom line. He said that if the Hua Corporation felt that it was too expensive, they could reduce the price appropriately. At the thought of this, he could not help but take a deep breath. Who would have thought that there would be a time when he was in love? At this moment, no one said anything. Not long after, Wuxia said, "These requests are not a problem. However, I hope that your company can consider buying out the DX technology for 10 years. Hearing this, he was stunned for a moment. He and Si Chunyan looked at each other, and in the end, they could not help but look at Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj only woke up from the movie when she felt that someone had kicked her stool. She looked up expressionlessly at Si Chunyan. Si Chunyan suddenly felt a chill down his spine. This ancestor was really not easy to please. Ahem. Buying out the DX technology for 10 years? He deliberately raised his voice, wanting Bei Yunj, who was wearing earphones, to hear him. At this moment, Bei Yunj took off her earphones and looked at Wuxia. She thought for a moment, rested her chin on her hand, and looked at Wuxia with a smile. Brother, isn't 10 years a little expensive? At this moment, everyone who did not know anything thought that this Missy did not know anything and started to feel sorry for her. Only he wanted to cover Bei Yunj's mouth to make her rational. No, this was not expensive. Miss Pei, aren't you too considerate? He smiled insincerely. If this were anyone else, Bei Yunj might have disagreed coldly. Now that it was this person from the Hua Corporation, she started to feel sorry for him for spending too much money. Miss Pei is inexperienced. Don't argue with a young lady, the vice president quickly said. He was afraid that he would be angered by Bei Yunj's words. Then, the vice president looked at Bei Yunj with a fake smile and said, Miss Pei, it's better for you to listen to the company's instructions. No matter how much we sell, it's only right. Si Qingyan was speechless. His words were well said, but this was the first time that they had seen such a dangerous action where flattery could offend the person in question. Bei Yunj's casual gaze swept past the vice president. However, when she remembered that this was a company meeting, it was indeed inappropriate for her to speak. Thus, she put on her headphones and watched the movie. Who would have thought? At this time, the man next to her saw that the girl didn't say anything and thought that she was unhappy. The next moment, just as Bei Yunj reached out to adjust the volume of the movie, a warm and dry hand suddenly covered hers. Bei Yunj's long and curly eyelashes trembled violently. As soon as she looked up, she saw the arrogant and handsome man speaking calmly on the surface, but secretly holding her hand under the table. He comforted her very naturally. It was as if he was coaxing her. When Bei Yunj regained her senses, her face inexplicably heated up. After the meeting, Wuxia stayed behind to give instructions. Vice President Sun can arrange to go to City G in the near future to expand the market there. Hearing Wuxia's words, Xingsu knew very well. Letting Vice President Sun do market expansion seemed to be giving Vice President Sun a great opportunity, but it was actually an exile. P.S. If nothing goes wrong tomorrow, there will be 10 updates. Chapter 644. And it was obvious that Vice President Sun had been sent away by Master Du because he had deliberately insulted Miss Pei just now. Looking at the scene just now, even he could feel that He and Si Qingyan should have known Bei Yunj for a long time. However, Vice President Sun was blind. However, Xingsu roughly knew why Vice President Sun was targeting Bei Yunj. A year or two ago, Vice President Sun wanted to send his niece to Master Du's side, but Master Du had instructed him to arrange for her to go to another branch company. And now, Miss Pei's appearance was an eyesore in Vice President Sun's eyes. Xingsu knew very well and nodded. Yes. At the end of the long corridor, he glanced around and then looked at Bei Yunj with disappointment. What's wrong with you? The Hua Corporation did not think that it was expensive, but this fellow's heart ached. Bei Yunj licked her lips, thinking of the scene of them holding hands under the conference room table just now. She looked down unconsciously. The corners of her lips curled up and her voice was lazy. I didn't lose out either. His eyelids twitched. You and the president of the Hua Corporation are. Bei Yunji's eyes curled up and her face was not red. He's Qin Yu's friend. Dean, he laughed coldly. Why didn't I know that Qin Yu was so influential? He did not think that Bei Yunji was very close to her biological brother. Bei Yunji was speechless. Forget it. You have to appease Delaney this time. He has already come to Yuncheng and contacted me several times. He is very sincere. Dean, he sighed. Okay, I got it. Bei Yunji's lips curled up. Another weekend. Before Bei Yunji could get out of bed, she was bombarded by calls. The girl on the bed was wearing a long white silk dress with straps. Her bright and lazy eyes were filled with impatience and coldness. New world soon. A cold and fair forearm reached out and answered the call. She placed the phone to her ear and said hoarsely, "What's the matter?" "Teacher Pei, did I do something wrong?" It was Delaney. Bei Yunji rubbed her forehead and waited for herself to calm down before she said, "No, what's wrong with you? I heard this morning that DX was signed to the Hua Corporation." Bei Yunji. Delaney was furious. Can't our friendship compare to the Hua Corporation's? Bei Yunji's eyelids twitched. After a while, she slowly sat up straight. Delaney, your 11 project hasn't been developed yet. But I feel that with my ability, I can definitely. The 11 project can be extended for another 5 years. As soon as Bei Yunji finished speaking, Delaney's heart trembled crazily. Wouldn't he have earned 10 billion for nothing? How could he be so kind-hearted? I've seen your company's research and development department. There are many unknowns in the 11 project. I can give you some guidance, Bei Yunji said again. This made Delaney wonder if he believed in Bodhisattva now. Why was he suddenly so merciful, giving free guidance? One had to know that he had spent a lot of money to guide his cousin's EG Corporation back then. Delaney probed, really? Yes, really. After all, Bei Yunji felt guilty towards Delaney. Delaney, on the other hand, did not know. Instead, he was very touched. Miss Pei, I didn't expect you to be such a loyal person. Chapter 645. There was no need to think that way. Then I'll hang up first. You. Bei Yunji was silent for a moment before comforting him. Good luck. After hanging up, Delaney was stunned. He felt complicated and touched. He did not expect her to be such a gentle person. He did not expect her to be thinking of him all this time. At this thought, Delaney looked at Titch even more lovingly. Fortunately, he did not lose this brat back then. Titch, who was doing a report, felt a chill on the back of his head and could not help scratching it. At the same time, just as Bei Yunji was about to go back to sleep, another call came. Bei Yunji was speechless. All right. She did not have to sleep anymore. You have something on too? Bei Yunji tried her best to make her voice gentle, but it was inexplicably scary. Si Qingyan's eyelids twitched. Master Pei, don't be so angry. I'm just telling you good news and make you happy. Hurry. Bei Yunji got out of bed and pulled open the curtains. The golden light outside scattered lazily on the girl's slender and fair neck, looking seductive and flirtatious. Although I can't get your photo on Neely University's Wall of Fame, your name is already in the middle C position. Only the photo was blank. She suppressed her temper and smiled faintly. This is the good news. Master Pei, at your age, you don't have any yearning for fame and fortune. It's a very scary thing. Do you understand? Even if it was him, if his portrait was hung on Neely's Wall of Fame one day, he would probably be excited for a month. Bei Yunji changed the topic. Is there anything else? Yes. Elder Zhong just went out and asked me to tell you. Si Qingyan sounded envious. There's an academic conference at 2 this afternoon in the conference hall of Yin University. Academic conference. Bei Yunji did not have any impression of this. Yes, I heard from Elder Zhong that the higher-ups have been asking about your situation some time ago. They're probably afraid that you'll be poached by other countries. However, now that they've confirmed that you'll be staying in the country, the higher-ups must be relieved. Si Qingyan smiled and teased. Well, I took the initiative to organize a meeting. Although it's called an academic conference, it's actually just for you to network. It was as if he was worried about social anxiety. However, if it were anyone else, they would probably be flying with joy. After all, the people who could attend this conference were all big shots in the academic circle. Si Qingyan understood Bei Yunji's poor social skills very well. He immediately said, "Do you believe that if you reject this time, the next academic conference will probably be held by us?" Bei Yunji. Got it. Afternoon. Bei Yunji still came to Yunqing University. However, he didn't expect to see a group of familiar faces as soon as he entered. Bei Yunji? Leia noticed Bei Yunji. "What are you doing here?" At this moment, Song Yao turned around and was stunned for a moment when she saw that it was really Bei Yunji. She immediately walked towards Bei Yunji. "Yunji, why are you here?" Bei Yunji licked his lips and narrowed his pretty eyes. Suddenly his lips curved. "I'm looking for someone." The moment he finished speaking. Chapter 646. Bei Yunji glanced at Cheng Zihuai carelessly. Suddenly, Bei Yunji leaned behind Song Yao and hugged her waist lightly. His lazy voice sounded from behind Song Yao. Tian, look at your defeated opponent. Isn't he quite a busybody?" Song Yao was speechless. The rest of the people were speechless. Cheng Zihuai's expression was livid. "Bei Yunji." In the next second, Cheng Zihuai laughed coldly. "Bei Yunji, you don't even have the right to compete. What right do you have to speak to me like this?" "Does student Cheng have the right to speak to my friend like this?" Song Yao's originally gentle eyes were cold and her pale pink lips were pursed, looking like she was protecting Bei Yunji. Then behind him, Pei Qian's red lips curled up lazily as he deliberately said, "That's right." Song Yao was speechless. This annoying fellow behind her might really be the reincarnation of a demon. "Song Yao, you have a bright future. Why are you with such a person?" Cheng Zihuai's expression was dark as he questioned her. Now that Song Yao had won first place in the competition, she had already opened the doors of all the famous schools. What about Bei Yunji? She was just a useless young lady who was waiting to die. Cheng Zihuai's handsome face could not help but distort, as if he had long forgotten that Bei Yunji had won first place in the Computing Institute. "Student Cheng, why don't you take care of yourself?" Song Yao's eyes were gentle, but her tone was firm. "You don't have to interfere in my relationship with Yunji." Then, before anyone could react, everyone heard Song Yao say slowly, "I've long heard that student Cheng and Yunji are a little unhappy. But if it's just these unhappiness, student Cheng doesn't have to lie through his teeth." The moment she smiled, a pair of dimples appeared on her cheeks. "I believe that our Yunji's value is definitely not limited to this competition." These words. At the same time, Leia could not help but glance at Song Yao and frown. She had always known that Song Yao was such a person. However, she had also heard that Song Yao had a good temper. It was her first time seeing Song Yao so domineering. Leia pursed her lips and looked at Bei Yunji. After a while, she laughed at herself in her heart. Song Yao probably said this to protect Bei Yunji's face. Why should she take it seriously? At this very moment, the one with the ugliest expression was Cheng Zihuai. No one had expected Cheng Zihuai to be scolded by the good-tempered Song Yao. "How long will you be here?" After Song Yao and Bei Yunji bought water, they walked on the path. "I don't know either." Bei Yunji glanced at Song Yao and suddenly thought of Song Yao's serious expression just now. She could not help but clear her throat and hide her smile. "Then why are you here?" "The teacher said that there might be a meeting for the top 10 of the competition at 2:30 p.m. It will be held in the conference room. Let's wait here first." Bei Yunji. She glanced at her watch. It was only 1 o'clock. "Go play in the empty classroom next door first. I'll send you a message later, and you can come over." Bei Yunji fanned Song Yao with the magazine she had just bought. Seeing that Song Yao's fair and tender face had turned red from the heat, she could not help but smirk. He didn't know if this girl was stupid or not. She had rushed over so early. "Huh? Send me a message?" Song Yao was stunned. How did Yunji know what time she had a meeting? I'll go to the conference room for a meeting first. I'll come and find you later." With that said, Bei Yunji gave the magazine she bought to Song Yao. Chapter 647. Hearing this, Song Yao immediately reacted. Why did the teacher ask them not to approach the conference hall? Was it because someone was having a meeting inside? Soon. With this confusion, Song Yao walked to the empty classroom and found two students chatting. She did not listen to them on purpose, but the two students did not seem to care that there were others present. Is what you said true? One of them sounded excited. Of course it's true. I heard the teacher talking just now and said that some people are having a meeting in the conference hall. I roughly heard the names of a few people. They're all big shots in the scientific research field. Song Yao's hand froze. Suddenly, she thought of Bei Yunj, who had just gone to the meeting. What big shot can you know? Stop bragging. The student beside him rolled his eyes. King. The corners of that person's mouth twitched and he had the urge to kill his friend. I haven't seen them with my own eyes. Can't I hear about them on television? Our former principal, Bai Mingzhang, and Professor Yu Guang, who just won a world award in the nuclear engineering field, are all here. When the student beside him, who did not care much at first, heard this, his legs almost turned weak. Who are you talking about? Are you deaf? Song Yao's long eyelashes fluttered as well. She picked up her phone instinctively and sent a message to Bei Yunj. Song Yao, who are you having a meeting with? A few minutes later. Yunge. Picture. Song Yao clicked on it instinctively. The photo sent by Bei Yunj was a form. It was really filled with immortal big shots. 1. Zhang Moping, President of the Academy of Engineering. 2. Bai Mingzhang, former principal of Yin University, academician of the Academy of Sciences. 3. Zhong Shenglin, Director of the Institute of Computing. 4. Yu Guang, former director of the First Research Institute of the Ministry of Defense. Song Yao was speechless. What kind of meeting was Bei Yunj having? At this moment, in the meeting room, Bei Yunj, who was being stared at by everyone, was speechless. Very good. 5 minutes. After another 2 minutes, someone finally found his voice and asked with a slight tremble. You are? Bei Yunj. If I'm not mistaken, the person you're talking about should be me. How old is this girl, old Zhong? Bai Mingzhang's eyes widened. He immediately turned to look at Zhong Shenglin. He couldn't believe that the girl in front of him, whose skin was so tender that one could squeeze water out of it, was actually. Although they had made a one-sided guess, perhaps he was quite young, or perhaps only in his 30s or 40s. What happened in the end? He was at most 20 years old, right? Who? Or just had her 19th birthday. After Zhong Shenglin said this, the others did not react. But then he said, Old Bai, you know. Bai Mingzhang. How did he know? Old Bai, did you steal old Zhong's woman behind our backs? Zhang Moping's sharp gaze stopped on Bai Mingzhang. Bai Mingzhang. What the hell? Where did he get the connections to do that? Old Bai, you've pursued Lanjun for so long. How could you not know her family's daughter? Zhong Shenglin reminded him helplessly. Zhong Shenglin, don't mention my personal feelings for no reason. What's wrong with me pursuing Lanjun? What's wrong with me liking her? Am I breaking the law by liking Lanjun? What does this have to do with Lanjun's daughter? Bai Mingzhang was halfway through his words when he suddenly realized that something was wrong. Chapter 648. Turning around, Bai Mingzhang saw Bei Yunj staring at him faintly. Bai Mingzhang. What the hell? Wait a minute. The daughter of the Lanjun family seemed to be called Bei Yunj. Or it couldn't be such a coincidence, right? Didn't they say that the daughter of the Lanjun family didn't have good grades? This wasn't good. She had won the Farisk and Busako awards this year? If this daughter's grades weren't good, whose daughter's grades were good? My name is Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj said slowly. Hearing this, not only Bai Mingzhang, but Yu Guang, who had always been on good terms with Director Lin, also almost couldn't react. Was the daughter of the Lanjun family so talented? How old was she, and she already had such ability? Bai Mingzhang asked persistently. Bei Yunj glanced at Bai Mingzhang indifferently and said after a while, I didn't ask Grandma to interfere with my studies. So she's the daughter of the Lanjun family. Zhou Moping had an epiphany. Wait, then why didn't Lanjun tell me about this? There was a long silence. Yu Guang was the first to react. Wait a minute, old Zhong. Did you already know the daughter of the Lanjun family? All the big shots. Therefore, this person was able to achieve such achievements at such a young age because he was smart. This person was too sneaky. Ahem, I paid some attention to Gu'er when she was with Marcus. Oh. He still remembered that Zhong Xinglin complained in the group about how he couldn't find a daughter, like Bai Yunj. It turned out that he already knew that the daughter of the Lanjun family had such talent, and didn't reveal anything. Jealousy really made people mean. Look at what he said, it was too unpleasant. Zhong Xinglin felt guilty and didn't continue. Zhou Moping smiled. So you secretly poached her and didn't say anything? Zhong Xinglin. Was this a beast? Trying to steal his girlfriend in front of him? Well, you're still young. You don't have to learn computer science. Look at your talent in mathematics. It's hard to come by in 100 years. Zhou Moping began to poach in front of Zhong Xinglin. Bai Yunj thought for a moment. My physics is okay. Wait. What are you trying to do? Are you even human? It wasn't easy for me to find an heir, and you're still trying to poach me? Now that you mention it, I feel that physics is also very good. You must be good at physics too, right? Bai Mingzhang was not to be outdone. Bai Yunj didn't expect that she would suddenly feel like she had a bunch of weird grandfathers at a meeting organized for her by the higher-ups, at this very moment. The others didn't say anything else. Zhong Xinglin immediately stopped these people from doing anything dangerous. These people were too shameless. Bai Yunj seemed to have thought of something and suddenly said to Zhou Moping, Mr. Zhou, can I get your contact number? Zhou Moping was flattered when he heard this. You can call me Grandpa Zhou. We don't have to be so polite. However, she did feel a little sour in her heart. Why was Zhong Xinglin so lucky to find such a good seedling? Suddenly. Okay, Grandpa Zhou. Bai Yunj nodded. After getting Zhou Moping's contact number, her eyebrows moved and the corners of her lips curled up. However, at this moment, when the others saw this, they felt that it was unfair. Why was old Zhou the only one who was asked for his contact number? Chapter 649. Shall we add each other's contact information? Bai Mingzhang was the one who felt the most unbalanced. How could Lanjuan's daughter be close to that old-fashioned Zhou Moping? If she was taught to be old-fashioned, how would she find a partner in the future? Bai Yunj glanced at Bai Mingzhang and thought of Bai Mingzhang's words. She was silent for a moment. How long have you known my grandmother? As soon as she finished speaking, the others fell into silence. What was originally a good gathering had now turned into Bai Mingzhang's personal interrogation. This was really exciting. This about 40 years. Elder Bai, who had always been calm in everyone's eyes, looked slightly nervous at this moment. High school classmate. Lin Lanjun was Bai Mingzhang's first love. However, Lin Lanjun was already attracted to the young businessman who saved her back then. She didn't know that her straight-A student friend, who usually made things difficult for her, actually liked her. Bai Yunj glanced at Bai Mingzhang and didn't ask any more questions. However, compared to her distant and polite attitude towards the others, she was slightly colder to Bai Mingzhang. Bai Mingzhang probably knew that his words just now had made Bai Yunj unable to accept it for a moment. He was even more regretful. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have said such a thing. Now he had brought himself into a ditch. Thinking of this, Bai Mingzhang couldn't help but glare at Zhong Xinglin. If Zhong Xinglin hadn't said so earlier, would he have caused such a scene the first time he met Lanjuan's daughter? Zhong Xinglin's eyelids twitched when he sensed Bai Mingzhang's malice. Who asked this damned old man to be so shameless and always talk about Lanjun? In less than 20 minutes, Bai Yunj exchanged contact information with everyone present, and was even added into their group. As soon as Bai Yunj entered the group chat, she saw the group name. Happy Family Rose. Bai Yunj's hand paused. ? However, if someone who often watched the news looked at it, they would realize that the 17 members in this group were all famous figures in the scientific research field. Soon, Bai Yunj saw Bai Mingzhang's message. Bai Mingzhang, Lin Lanjuner, our daughters are here too, Rose. Bai Yunj. At this moment, Bai Yunj suspected that Bai Mingzhang was the one who had created this group. The others were speechless as they continued to spam. What do you mean by our daughter? Where's your shame? Grandma doesn't really read the group chat. Bei Yunj said. When Bai Mingzhang heard this, he had an epiphany. I see. No wonder Lan Jun ignored him even though he often mentioned her in the group chat. Forget it then. Or do you want to come to my house with Lan Jun when you have time? Hearing Bai Mingzhang suddenly ask with a smile, the others couldn't help but curse in their hearts. This old thing was too sneaky. Was he trying to find a lover for himself and an heir at the same time? I will when I'm free. There was no emotion in Bei Yunj's voice. When Bai Mingzhang heard this, his eyes immediately curved into crescents, and he couldn't suppress the raging waves in his heart. 2 o'clock. Bei Yunj sent Song Yao a message. Not long after, Song Yao had just come over with the team when she saw Bei Yunj holding a jar of pickled vegetables. Song Yao was speechless. Where did she get the pickled vegetables from? Bei Yunj's expression did not look too good either. Her expression was subtle and her bright and beautiful face was filled with impatience. Song Yao could not help but burst out laughing. Chapter 650. Hearing this, Bei Yunj looked at Song Yao expressionlessly. Song Yao immediately hid her smile and said seriously, I'll let you carry it. She still knew that Bei Yunj was quite prideful sometimes. Bei Yunj glanced at her slowly. After a while, Song Yao heard her say, It's too heavy. Hearing this, Song Yao was about to say something when suddenly, a sneer sounded from behind her. Bei Yunj, other people come to Yin University for an exchange and learning. Did you come to look for someone to take this jar of pickled radishes? Leia could not help but laugh, the smile on her lips carrying a sense of superiority. From the beginning, when Bei Yunj got first place in the physics competition, she had been wary and resistant to Bei Yunj. She had been worried that Bei Yunj would stand in her way. But now, it seemed like Bei Yunj was indeed a little suspected of cheating to get first place. No wonder Qin Yojiao hated her so much. Bei Yunj glanced at the jar of pickled radishes in her arms, her eyes calm. Her eyes were lazy and she did not want to bother with Leia at all. Yunj, do you like to eat pickled vegetables? Song Yao did not pay attention to Leia and asked herself. No, my grandma likes to eat it. Although Bei Yunj did not really want to hold this thing, when she heard that it was Director Lin's favorite, she still picked it up silently. I see. My grandma likes to eat it too. Song Yao smiled. At this moment, Leia, who had been ignored, had her expression darken. She smirked and clenched her fists instinctively. This Bei Yunj clearly had nothing to be proud of, but she still acted like she was superior to her. Did she really think that she was amazing just because she was the eldest young lady of the Qin family? Why didn't she see how different she was from Qin Yojiao? Leia suppressed her anger and gritted her teeth. And her appearance was seen by the girl who had always wanted to be on good terms with Leia. She understood and immediately sneered, deliberately mocking and ridiculing him. Some people really think too highly of themselves. Leia, you don't have to care. After all, we won't be on the same side in the future. Just now, Professor Gao was full of praise for you and said that you have unlimited potential. In the future, Rhea, you'll definitely be surrounded by great researchers like Professor Gao. Leia felt a little better after being praised like that. When the girl saw that her words were effective, she immediately changed the topic and laughed. As for some people other than their family background, they only know people who sell pickled vegetables. After saying this, the few people present couldn't help but laugh in their hearts. Bei Yunj was really crazy. Who would be so free as to come out just for a jar of pickled radishes? Song Yao's eyes were cold. Qi Xinhua, have you said enough? Did I say anything wrong? Qi Xinhua was not afraid of Song Yao. What was there to be afraid of for a bankrupt young lady who had no money or power? Her raised face was filled with pride. A person who was chased out of Yin University's special class even appeared in Yin University again and again. If it were me, or would I get the face to do so? Bei Yunj, you're really interesting. Is the pickled vegetables too delicious? Or is the person who sells pickled vegetables amazing? Who gave you the courage to come to Yin University? With that said, many people felt that Qi Xinhua had gone overboard with her ridicule, but they also felt that Bei Yunj was overestimating herself. This Bei Yunj indeed did not know her place, and insisted on coming to such a place that was not suitable for her. Chapter 651. With that said, Leia finally spoke, as if she was comforting both parties. Okay, there's no need to quarrel over this. Maybe Bai Yunji's friend is someone from Yin University. With that said, Qi Xinhua immediately retorted, her tone sarcastic and smiling. Who can Bai Yunji know from Yin University? What a joke. What right did Bai Yunji have to be related to someone from Yin University? Even among their batch of people who had won awards, Leia was the most popular. Because she had gotten second place in the international physics competition back then, Professor Gao from the physics department had already taken a fancy to her. She would probably be able to enter Professor Gao's physics laboratory soon. Professor Gao was someone who had won many physics awards, and was also an academician of the Academy of Science. He had countless honors. You can't say that. After all, Yunji isn't a vain person. Yunji must know someone from Yin University since she came to Yin University. Leia's tone was indifferent, but her words were firm. However, in reality, she had already pushed Bai Yunji to a point where she had no way out. If Bai Yunji did not explain this clearly, everyone would definitely think that Bai Yunji was the culprit. They would think that Bai Yunji was a vain person. However, in the next second, before Qi Xinhua could continue provoking Bai Yunji, an unfamiliar voice suddenly sounded from the side. Yunji, why are you here? Why are you running with a pickled radish? Everyone turned around and saw a refined elder dressed simply, but in high spirits. There was even a jar of spicy cabbage in his hand. Bai Yunji was speechless. Was there an end to this? There's also spicy cabbage. Lanjun will definitely like it too, especially since I made it myself. Take it. Bai Mingzhang was out of breath when he came back from home. It was to let Bai Yunji give the pickled vegetables he made personally to Director Lin. This was his sincerity. Bai Yunji's eyelids twitched. There's too much. Even my grandma can't finish it. Really? Then you should eat too. Young people should eat more healthy and green food. Look at the cabbage and the radish. Do you notice anything different? Bai Mingzhang was very excited to promote his pickled vegetables. Bai Yunji tapped the glass tube rhythmically with her fingertips. She suppressed her temper and forced herself to be as polite to the elders as possible. After a while, she took a deep breath and said, No. This was planted by old Tian from Yin Agricultural University. I secretly brought it back. Bai Mingzhang was very proud. You don't know, but the things in old Tian's vegetable garden are all good stuff. However, old Tian was a petty person. It was because I took his order. He even raised a big black dog to look after the garden. It's going to be really hard to do it in the future. Bai Yunji could hear the regret in Bai Mingzhang's voice, but he felt that Bai Mingzhang was still eager to give it a try. At this moment, the other people present felt that the old man in front of them seemed a little familiar. Suddenly, Song Yao asked softly, Are you Principal Bai Mingzhang? Bai Mingzhang turned around and was a little surprised. You know me. Song Yao was speechless. It was really Bai Mingzhang. Song Yao's legs felt a little weak. She did not expect the pickled vegetables Bai Yunji was holding to be made by Bai Mingzhang himself. Was it really not a dream? Chapter 652. You're the former principal of Yinqing University. There shouldn't be anyone who doesn't know you. Song Yao was a little reserved. This was a big shot in the scientific research field. He was someone who truly stood at the peak of the academic field. At the same time, the rest of the people also froze and reacted sluggishly. Bai Mingzhang? It was Bai Mingzhang. Mr. Bai? Leia's expression changed, turning red and pale. She did not expect this jar of pickled vegetables to be given by Bai Mingzhang. Her mind was in a mess. How was this possible? How was this possible? Bai Yunji had not stayed at Yin University for long, and it was her first time seeing Mr. Bai. Where did Bai Yunji get the ability to be so close to Mr. Bai? Go, are these your friends? Bai Mingzhang glanced at the others and asked. Grandpa Bai, this is my friend Song Yao. Bai Yunji's voice was still cold as she introduced Song Yao solemnly. At this moment, Qi Xinhua, who had been sucking up to Leia just now, turned pale and realized that she had stood on the wrong side. If she had spoken up for Bai Yunji just now, would Bai Yunji have introduced her as the second person? Would she have a chance to be known by a big shot like Bai Mingzhang? You're Guer's friend. Bai Mingzhang looked at Bai Yunj. Seeing that Bai Yunj was determined not to take this jar of spicy cabbage away, he took the spicy cabbage back with a smile and stuffed it into Song Yao's hands again. Come, this is Grandpa Bai's greeting gift. This is the spicy cabbage I made personally. Song Yao, who was suddenly forced to hug the spicy cabbage, said, Thank you, Grandpa Bai. You're welcome. Let Guer bring you to my house to play in the future. Is the college entrance examination coming soon? If you come, I can teach you some physics. In the future, if you want to get into Yin University, I can give you some advice. After all, I'm quite familiar with this place. Bai Mingzhang did not look as serious as he did outside. Instead, he was smiling like a kind old grandfather next door. Song Yao nodded a little introverted. If there's a chance, I will. All right, let's exchange contact details first. The scene of Bai Mingzhang voluntarily giving out his contact information made everyone green with envy. What kind of luck did Song Yao have to be invited by Bai Mingzhang to play, and even have his contact number? Most importantly, the jar of pickled vegetables that they disliked and despised was actually made by Bai Mingzhang himself. If it was given to them, they would be happy to bring a jar of pickled vegetables and wander around. They would even worship the jar of pickled vegetables and burn incense every day. Old Tian. Is that Dean Tian Hujing from Yin City's Agricultural University? A boy suddenly had an idea and asked subconsciously. At this moment, only then did Bai Mingzhang realize that he had blurted out the matter of him stealing old Tian's vegetables. Bai Mingzhang. He was done for. His image was gone. Seeing Bai Mingzhang's silence, everyone roughly understood the origin of these 2 jars of pickled vegetables. They sucked in a breath of cold air. Wouldn't I be punished by the heavens if I ate these 2 jars of pickled vegetables? Since Elder Tian had personally planted them, this was no longer a matter of carrots and cabbages. Bai Mingzhang didn't think much of it. After all, Elder Tian liked to study crops, so he had very high standards for his diet. All along he had been eating what he grew. However, Chapter 653. In fact, of course, Tian Hujing knew that a lot of vegetables were missing every day. He just turned a blind eye and endured it. After all, they had been old friends for so many years, and he was too embarrassed to expose them. But in the end, Bai Mingzhang, this old fellow, was shameless. In order to please Lin Longjun, he had directly taken away more than half of the vegetables in his private garden. Even 4 or 5 of his newly cultivated crops had been taken away by this old fellow. Therefore, Tian Hujing could not take it anymore, and got a big black dog to look after the vegetable garden. If it wasn't for everyone's dignity, he would have wanted to erect a sign in the vegetable garden. No one with the surname Bai can enter my vegetable garden. At this moment, Bai Yunj watched as Bai Mingzhang chatted with Song Yao. Her eyebrows moved, and she tugged at Bai Mingzhang's sleeve gently. She smirked and said lazily, Tian still has a meeting. Hearing this, Bai Mingzhang regained his senses. I see. Then Tian, go to the meeting quickly. Song Yao was speechless. This form of address was really shameful. In the end, Song Yao had no choice but to carry this can of spicy cabbage and walk to the conference hall stiffly. At this moment, no one dared to talk about this can of pickled vegetables anymore. This was F*King made by Bai Mingzhang himself. So, during the meeting, the professor kept noticing that this group of students were secretly glancing at the can of spicy cabbage Song Yao was carrying from time to time. The professor was speechless. What was wrong with this group of students now? If they liked spicy cabbage so much, why were they staring at the spicy cabbage? Searching for ebooks. After the academic conference ended, Tich, Jasmine, and the rest prepared to return to our nation. On the way, Jasmine looked like he wanted to ask but did not dare to. In the end, Tich could not help but ask for Jasmine. Teacher, does Song Yao have someone she likes? With that said, Jasmine's face flushed red, and the pedestrians in the airport could not help but look at this handsome foreign man. Bai Yunj narrowed her pretty eyes and her voice was a little casual. You like Song Yao? However, when Tich heard this, he immediately felt a chill run down his spine. No, it's not me. It's Jasmine. Tich betrayed Jasmine without hesitation. Anyway, Jasmine was so bold that he dared to think about the woman by his teacher's side. Why would he be afraid of his teacher finding out? Bei Yunj glanced at Jasmine unhurriedly, but there was a deeper meaning in his eyes. She didn't. Jasmine immediately became agitated and did not notice the coldness in his teacher's tone. Really? Jasmine, you seem to have had a lot of girlfriends, Bei Yunj said unhurriedly. This made Jasmine instantly feel guilty. In Country R, he had indeed had many girlfriends, and every one of them was sexy and hot. Half of the headlines of Country R's wealthy families were about him. However, in the past 20 years, he had only had uncontrollable feelings for Song Yao. If he had known that there would be a day when he would like a girl so much, he would never have gotten a girlfriend without restraint. Teacher, about this matter, I think. Jasmine wanted to retain his good impression of him, but the next moment he heard his teacher's leisurely voice. If you want to chase after me, I don't mind, but you have to know the consequences of bullying her. Hearing this, Jasmine looked up and met Bei Yunj's faint smile. His scalp turned numb inexplicably. Chapter 654. Bei Yunj did not know what Jasmine was thinking, but she had seen many people in the past who were friendly to their friends, but heartless to their girlfriends. If Jasmine was such a person and insisted on provoking Song Yao, then this would not be a simple outcome of breaking off their teacher-student relationship. Teacher, I really like Song Yao. Don't worry, I won't do anything to let anyone down. Although Jasmine was known for being a playboy, he had always been generous to his girlfriends. Even if they broke up, none of his girlfriends said that Jasmine was bad. Bei Yunj did not speak, her eyes filled with careless thoughts. She did not know if Song Yao had walked out of Fu Yanbai's shadow. However, no matter who Song Yao liked, it was better than Fu Yanbai. Bei Yunj did not continue this topic. Instead, she suddenly remembered and asked Tich, "Where's your father? Didn't he go back with you?" "My father? He took a private plane back," Tich said carelessly. Originally, Tich wanted to go back with Delaney, but Delaney refused to agree, especially after he found out that Bei Yunj had agreed to send Tich to the airport. Delaney had kicked Tich out early in the morning. He refused to let Tich take his private plane at all. What a joke. He had personally sent Tich to the airport, but Tich still foolishly wanted to take a helicopter with him? How did he give birth to such an idiot? Just like that, she was lucky enough to become his student. At this thought, Delaney had no choice but to believe in Country A's traditional culture. The ancestors had blessed him. It was really the ancestors who had blessed him. Otherwise, how could this idiot cozy up to him? Tich had no idea that in his father's heart, he was just a tool to please his teacher. Bei Yunj did not have the time to think about why Delaney did not take her son with him. She only glanced at her watch and thought about returning to the computing institute later. Teacher, will go back first. You must come to Country or when you have time. Fo Tich held himself back and said emotionally, "We'll miss you." Hearing this, Bei Yunj nodded. Her lazy voice sounded very perfunctory. Okay. I'll miss you too. Remember to speed up the progress of the project. Don't waste time. Tich and Jasmine. As expected, this emotional atmosphere did not last for more than 3 seconds. Hurry up and board the plane. After Bei Yunj finished speaking, he left with one hand in his pocket. It made Tich and Jasmine feel as if they had been abandoned by a scumbag. Wasn't this a little too perfunctory? However, just as Bei Yunj bought a cup of Odin from a convenience store in the airport, Bei Yunj looked up and saw a middle-aged man in a suit standing in front of her. It was Father Qin. Bei Yunj's hand paused imperceptibly. Then she took another bite of the meatball, held the Odin and walked out. Who are those two men? Father Qin immediately asked. He could tell that the two foreign men did not seem to be ordinary people. Bei Yunj was stopped and had no choice but to stop in her tracks. She slowly took a bite of the meatball. After she finished eating, she licked her lips. There was a faint smile and impatience in her eyes. But suddenly, a sharp voice sounded not far away. Chapter 655. Of course, Mrs. Qin recognized Bei Yunj from afar. There were all kinds of complicated emotions in her heart, but more than that, there was a sense of annoyance. This was someone she never wanted to meet in her life. She could even meet her at the airport. Mrs. Qin held Mr. Qin's hand and said with a smile, Jiao Jiao is still waiting for us over there. In order to participate in the International Musicians Association's performance this time, she has to train for 3 months. You won't be able to see her even if you want to. These words sounded like a happy family of 3. However, at this moment, Mr. Qin's heart ached when he saw Bei Yunji's indifferent gaze. He was unmoved by Mrs. Qin's words. He softened his voice. Give me some time. Let's have a good chat, okay? Perhaps even the Qin family could not afford to provoke those 2 men just now. How could Bei Yunji have anything to do with such people? Mr. Qin, can you stop your overflowing fatherly love? You have 3 sons and a daughter. Isn't there a place for you to show your fatherly love? Bei Yunji said with a smirk. In the next moment, Mrs. Qin immediately pulled Mr. Qin and said, Qin Ting, did you see it clearly? No one treats you as their biological father. Listen, if it was Jiao Jiao, would she be able to say this? At the mention of Qin Youjiao, Mrs. Qin's eyes were filled with pride. Now that Jiao Jiao has become an official member of the International Musicians Association, it's completely our Qin family's honor. Do you think that others can fight for all of this for you? With that said, Mrs. Qin glanced at Bei Yunji meaningfully. It was obvious that this others was none other than Bei Yunji. In Mrs. Qin's heart, the daughter she had raised was naturally 1,000 times better than this gloomy and evil Bei Yunji. If it wasn't for this blood relationship, she would have made Bei Yunji disappear from Yinqing even if Bei Yunji had pushed Qin Youjiao down the stairs. But why was Bei Yunji her daughter? Mrs. Qin hid the frustration and unwillingness in her eyes. She did not want such an embarrassing girl to have anything to do with her. It doesn't matter how the child is. Mr. Qin was also afraid that Bei Yunji would be angry if she heard what he said. Mother Qin, on the other hand, found it ironic. Anything is fine? She was sent to a mental hospital because she pushed Jiao Jiao. Is that a good thing? Enough. It's all a misunderstanding. Ayan said it before. After Mr. Qin finished speaking, he immediately turned to Bei Yunji and said, I believe you. You didn't push. Bei Yunji could not help but snort as she watched the couple cook cold rice nonstop. She smirked nonchalantly, her eyes filled with impudence and laziness. Is it important whether I pushed him or not? If Mr. and Mrs. Qin are really conflicted about this, why don't you let Qin Youjiao come over now? Bei Yunji looked up, and a cold light flashed in the depths of her eyes. She licked her moist red lips, and her smile was arrogant and unruly. Do you want me to give you some evidence? Immediately, Mother Qin's expression changed. It was so dark that ink could drip from it. Bei Yunji. In the past, when Bei Yunji had just returned, she was only gloomy and full of thoughts. But now, this Bei Yunji was completely lawless. Did she really think that she could become a member of the Hua family just because she moved into the Hua family? Mrs. Qin gritted her teeth, her eyes cold. Do you think I can't deal with you just because you have the support of the Hua family? Suddenly, the man's low and light voice sounded not too far away. It was magnetic and pleasant to the ears. Why? Who does Mrs. Qin want to deal with now? Chapter 656. Bei Yunji was stunned when she heard this. In the blink of an eye, she saw the man in a black suit. He had elegant eyebrows and was handsome and refined. His pale-colored eyes were abstinent and his posture was lazy and carefree. Hua Shidu naturally picked up the bamboo skewer in Bei Yunji's hand and made a skewer of tofu. He bent down and took a bite. The man ate elegantly and his appearance was so good-looking that Bei Yunji's eyes inexplicably drifted away when she saw the man licking his thin lips. However, not long after, Bei Yunji regained her senses. This man had just eaten her oden. Bei Yunji's expression instantly changed. Brother, it's sold over there. Seeing that the little girl was starting to get unhappy, the man's thin red lips curled up, and he said in a very insincere and lazy tone, I see. Bei Yunji. Then go and buy some for brother? After speaking, Hoshidu really took out 2 red notes from his black man's wallet and stuffed them into Bei Yunji's hand. The expression on Bei Yunji's bright and beautiful face became even more subtle. How could this D***MN man be so self-righteous? I won't. Bei Yunji smiled slightly. and even put the 2 red notes into her pocket with a smile. At this moment, when Mr. and Mrs. Qin saw the interaction between Bei Yunj and the man, it was not difficult for them to tell that the man was deliberately teasing Bei Yunj. However, his eyes did not hide his indulgence and indulgence. Huashida's upturned eyes were charming and his posture was frivolous. He casually flicked Bei Yunj with his index finger and laughed softly. He was lazy and irredeemably sexy. Where did this little bandit come from? Mr. Hua. At this moment, Mr. Qin could not help but speak up. 29 Gigi, especially when he saw that Bei Yunj's relationship with outsiders was better than her relationship with him, her biological father, he felt even more upset. I almost forgot that President Qin is here too. Huashidu turned his head. The smile in his eyes had completely disappeared, and his tone was indifferent. If I didn't hear wrongly, your words just now were directed at my young lady? When Mrs. Qin heard this, she wanted to continue mocking Bei Yunj, but when she looked up and met the man's cold and emotionless eyes, she instantly felt a chill down her spine. This person from the Hua family was indeed not to be trifled with. Mr. Hua, after all, Gur is our daughter. The mother and daughter only had a conflict. They didn't mean it that way, Mr. Qin immediately said. When Bei Yunj heard this, her eyes gradually filled with mockery and amusement. However, with Huashidu around, she did not want to say anything to Mr. Qin. Subsequently, just as Bei Yunj was about to pull Huashidu away, the man naturally allowed Bei Yunj to hold his hand. However, he stood rooted to the ground and did not move at all. His dignified eyes were indifferent as he curled his thin lips indifferently. Is that so? But my daughter's surname is not Qin. As soon as he finished speaking, Father Qin's expression changed. Indeed, back then, because of Mrs. Qin's obstruction, they did not transfer Bei Yunj's household registration to their name. And because Bei Yunj was unwilling, they did not ask Bei Yunj to change her surname. Therefore, in a sense, they were outsiders. President Qin, take care of your wife. Since Madame Gui knows that the Hua family is supporting Yunyan, then it's best for her to know her place. The man chuckled carelessly. His slender and well-defined fingers gently held the young lady's hand. My young lady can't suffer any grievances. In an instant. Chapter 657. She never thought that she would actually find a backer for Bei Yunj. Mr. Hua, with your status, you can have any woman you want. You, Mrs. Qin instinctively said unwillingly, but when she saw the coldness in Huashida's eyes, her body froze. Soon, she heard the man say slowly, Mrs. Qin, you have to know that I don't mind doing anything for Yunyan. The meaning of these words was obvious. It was not convenient for Bei Yunj to do anything to them, but he could. It was obvious that he was blatantly protecting Bei Yunj. In the next second, Mr. Qin immediately pulled Mrs. Qin back, his expression dark as he said to her, Don't talk nonsense. Hearing this, Mr. and Mrs. Qin turned around and saw Qin Youjiao, who was dressed beautifully and wearing a black mask. When Qin Youjiao saw Bei Yunj, her gaze changed and she smiled naturally as she held Mr. and Mrs. Qin's hands. However, just as Mr. Qin was about to apologize to Huashidu, Qin Youjiao's voice sounded not far away. Dad, Mom, who are you talking to? Pride appeared in Qin Youjiao's eyes as she glanced at Bei Yunj. She took off her mask and smiled. If there's a chance, I can bring Yunj to meet my teacher. Maybe Teacher Arn will teach Yunj too. Sarcasm appeared in Mrs. Qin's eyes, but because Huashidu was around, she did not say anything. Teacher Arn has officially accepted me as a student. I'm also qualified to participate in the concert early next year. Hearing this, Mrs. Qin was overjoyed. Really? Arn? Isn't that the interviewer from before? He should be very good. Teacher Arn is a very good musician in our nation. Qin Youjiao looked at Huashidu with a slightly infatuated gaze. It was obvious that her goal was not only to let Bei Yunj see the difference between them, it was also to get Huashida's favor. Seeing this, Bei Yunj looked at Qin Youjiao with a faint smile. Bei Yunj? Where did she get the ability to gain the favor of a teacher from the International Musicians Association? I believe that Mr. Hua also hopes that Yunj can become a better person. She deliberately did not let Huashida listen. Huashida's eyelids moved, and he lowered his eyes to look at the flamboyant and bright girl in front of him who had raised her eyebrows. The man's sexy Adam's apple rolled, and a low hoarse laugh overflowed. The teasing lazy voice just happened to ring in her ear. As expected. In the next second, he saw Qin Youjiao's nervous and embarrassed expression as she bit her lip. Mr. Hua, actually Before Qin Youjiao could finish speaking, Bei Yunji's lips suddenly curled up and she leaned in front of the man. She suddenly stood on tiptoes and covered his ears with both hands. Qin Youjiao watched as Bei Yunji covered the man's ears directly, not letting him hear her speak. Instantly, her heart burned with jealousy. What right did Bei Yunji have to prevent Huashidu from getting close to her? Qin Youjiao suppressed her anger and said with a fake smile, "Gore, aren't you being too petty by doing this? I just wanted to say something to Mr. Hua. Don't you know that you are very attractive?" She even smiled so brightly. On the other side, Bei Yunji deliberately did not look at the man's staring eyes, but her heart was fluttering. She did not hear what Qin Youjiao said at all. Bei Yunji glanced at them. "Are you all right? If there's nothing else, I'll get going first." Chapter 658. Inexplicably. In front of this man, Bei Yunji did not want to be entangled with this couple from the Qin family. At this moment, seeing this, Qin Youjiao felt that Bei Yunji was being arrogant and domineering. No man would like such an arrogant and domineering woman. Besides, it was a man like Huashidu. "Bei Yunji, have you ever cared about Mr. Hua's feelings when you do this?" Qin Youjiao pursed her lips. "You can't possibly restrict Mr. Hua's personal freedom, right?" Bei Yunji raised an eyebrow. Even her beautiful and lazy eyes looked charming. Personal freedom? After Bei Yunji asked, she looked at Huashidu. She wanted to know what this meant. However, the man who had not spoken much suddenly smirked and glanced at the decorative ribbon tied to Bei Yunji's sweater carelessly. A playful look appeared in his eyes, and he tugged at the bow on the little girl's sleeve lazily. His posture was lazy and frivolous. "Let's go, little girl." However, when Qin Youjiao saw that Huashidu was ignoring her, her face turned red and green. This man was already using his actions to tell her that she was being a busybody. Qin Youjiao was unwilling to accept this. She wanted to say something but was suddenly interrupted by Mr. Qin. "Jiao, do you think that if that man is unwilling, who can stop him?" Mr. Qin was the most clear-headed one. A person like Huashidu had always been the most unfathomable existence in the business world. And usually such people would never be restrained by anyone. Hearing this, Qin Youjiao froze. She did not expect Mr. Qin to know what she was thinking. Biting her lip, she stared at the man's dignified and composed back view. A trace of unwillingness flashed past her eyes before she turned to look at Mr. Qin. Qin Youjiao bit her lip. "Dad, if Yunji offends Mr. Hua in the future, I'm afraid the Qin family will be implicated." These words sounded nice. If it was in the past, Mr. Qin might have believed it quickly. However, at this moment, Mr. Qin's eyes darkened. He glanced at his pampered but obedient daughter, in front of him, and could not help but look at the girl who would not even greet him when she left. He had a feeling that he was losing something and he was afraid and depressed. "Brother, why are you here?" Bei Yunji walked beside Huashidu and pressed down on the brim of her hat as she asked unhurriedly. "Something cropped up all of a sudden, so I need to return to country R." Bei Yunji glanced at the man subconsciously and fell silent. What happened? Huashidu saw that the young lady did not speak, and could not help but chuckle softly. His magnetic and pleasant voice flowed out from his sexy Adam's apple. "I'm fine," Bei Yunji said. When the man heard this, his eyes became even darker, and he couldn't see clearly. He suddenly leaned forward and said, "You can't bear to part with me?" Bei Yunji glanced at him and suddenly smiled. "I want to nod. Can you bring me along?" "Brother only booked one ticket," the man said slowly and pinched the back of the little girl's neck gently. The numb feeling was like an electric current. However, Bei Yunji had just regained her senses when she heard the man change the topic. His voice was lazy and long. It was blatantly seductive, making her blush and her heart race. "If Yunji wants to go, you can only sit on brother's lap." This D***MN man. Bei Yunji smiled and reached out to grab the man's hand. "I thought that as a domineering president, Brother would take me back to take a private plane. Chapter 659. Hoshidu. What kind of drama has this kid been watching recently? Yes, but I rarely use it. This time, I went to our nation at the last minute and didn't have the time to report it. If Union likes it, I'll bring you to play next time? Hoshidu had bought 3 private planes in the past, and 2 of them were in Nili. However, Hoshidu had never been interested in this thing, so most of the time, he booked plane tickets. Hoshidu thought for a moment and pinched Bei Yunji's face as a punishment. He said calmly, "Don't watch nonsense dramas. It's easy to damage your brain." Bei Yunji laughed and said leisurely, "Brother, you go to our nation so frequently. Don't tell me your family has arranged a fiancé for you?" Who would have thought? The moment she finished speaking, the man fell silent. Fernans had indeed looked for a few girls for him. Among them, there seemed to be a daughter from a family that old Master Fernans liked very much. He was also thinking of a way to give her to him. Bei Yunji also felt the man's silence. "You have a fiancé?" Bei Yunji's voice was obviously lighter than usual as she stared at him with her beautiful eyes. However, no one noticed that she was clenching her fists unconsciously. Seeing that the girl had misunderstood, Hoshidu immediately comforted her without thinking. "No. Then you have a fiancé candidate." Bei Yunji's mind worked quickly and she immediately guessed most of it. However, just as Bei Yunji was letting her imagination run wild, she accidentally met the man's deep gaze. He stared at her for a while before suddenly chuckling hoarsely. "Yes, but you still have to wait for 2 to 3 years. Bei Yunji saw Hoshidu looking at her like this, and had the illusion that Hoshidu was talking about her. It must be fate. For some reason, her heart skipped a beat. Back at the Computing Institute, Bei Yunji was still thinking about a certain question, while Si Qingyan looked at Bei Yunji, who was almost an hour late at the agreed time. His eyelids could not help but twitch. "Ancestor, you've been there for 2 to 3 hours? Bei Yunji regained her senses and heard Si Qingyan's words. It didn't take long to send Tich and the others off. As for that man, "Master Pei, why do you look like you're heartbroken today?" This was the first time Si Qingyan had seen Bei Yunji in such a daze. She had been thinking about something. "Bei Yunji, why did you call me back? By the way, your situation is very serious. This time, among all the members of our institute, you are the most seriously injured." With that, Si Qingyan led Bei Yunji to his office and took out a dozen records. Bei Yunji asked subconsciously after taking it, "What happened? The doctor only gave you more than 20 points for the psychological evaluation. Even our recently divorced Uncle Hong scored 59 points. Si Qingyan pinched his glabella. He did not expect Bei Yunji to have such a genius brain and living conditions. She could actually make the lowest psychological evaluation he had ever seen. Then how could others live? Bei Yunji looked at the score and naturally folded her evaluation sheet in half, as if she was not surprised by this score. She said calmly, "Will it affect my project?" Si Qingyan, "Did you already know about this?" Bei Yunji's eyes were dark and unreadable as she glanced at Si Qingyan casually. Chapter 660. Don't look at me like that. It's useless to silence me. The old master knows about this too. Bei Yunji furrowed her eyebrows and was a little impatient. What can this psychological evaluation mean? It was not the first time she knew that there was something wrong with her. Otherwise, she would not have gone to the psychological clinic so many times in her previous life. However, it was useless even after seeing it for more than 10 years in her previous life. Why should she waste this time and continue reading? Yunji, yes, this evaluation report won't affect you from getting any honors. But the old master is worried about you and I don't want anything to happen to you. After Si Qingyan finished speaking, he saw that Bei Yunji was silent. He knew very well that this fellow was amenable to coaxing but not coercion. Elder Zhong has already arranged a private doctor for you. Bei Yunji's eyelashes fluttered and she glanced at Si Qingyan calmly. Just as Si Qingyan was feeling nervous that Bei Yunji might scold him, he heard her say slowly, "Si Qingyan, I won't commit suicide." Hearing this, Si Qingyan's body froze inexplicably. He could not help but look at this arrogant and unruly girl in front of him. He had never thought that one day, He would hear with his own ears that the person who said this would be Bei Yunji. Yesterday, when the psychiatrist talked about Bei Yunji's condition, he and old Master Zhong were both there. He found it hard to believe that a proud and arrogant person like Bei Yunji actually had extreme self-denial. To a certain extent, it was accompanied by some special influence in her childhood, causing her to have bipolar type I. Si Qingyan immediately asked, "Have you used a mood stabilizer in the past?" Last time, the doctor had also said that Bei Yunji did not accept his guidance. There were some questions that he could not ask at all. For example, if Bei Yunji had used a mood stabilizer before, it was very likely that Bei Yunji had already lost control of her emotions and had serious symptoms such as hallucinations before. Bei Yunji's fingers paused imperceptibly before she glanced at him slowly and pressed her psychological evaluation report in the middle of the stack of paper. She said lazily, "No." Si Qingyan was speechless. With this attitude, he no longer believed that Bei Yunji was telling the truth. He had never failed a psychological evaluation in his entire life. Search, however, this person was quite powerful. It was obvious that there was nothing he couldn't get, and he had the talent that everyone envied, but he had actually made himself into such a state of mind. What the hell? Brother Yin, don't make things difficult for me. I'm improving. Bei Yunji said slowly. Si Qingyan's eyelids twitched. You tested it last time too? How many points? 23. Bei Yunji took a piece of gum from Si Qingyan's table and said frankly. Si Qingyan took another look at Bei Yunji's psychological assessment registration. 31 points. Si Qingyan was speechless. Just a little bit of improvement, it seemed? But who the hell cares how much you improved in your psychological assessment? A failure was a failure. It was just a few extra marks. Was there a need to set off firecrackers in front of the computing institute? Si Qingyan took a deep breath. Before he could speak, he received another call. When Si Qingyan was on the phone, Bei Yunji could feel Si Qingyan's gaze on her from time to time. Bei Yunji was speechless. He suddenly had a bad premonition. Soon after hanging up the phone, as expected, Bei Yunji saw Si Qingyan smiling gently. Gu or Elder Zhong has contacted his friend and decided to let you go to the war zone to play for a while. Don't worry about school reopening. He will apply for leave for you. Chapter 661. Why? Bei Yunji's eyebrows moved unconsciously. My project hasn't been completed yet. Besides, she was not interested in the war zone. Si Qingyan was speechless. This fellow was still thinking about her project at a time like this. Si Qingyan took a deep breath. Who asked you to fail the psychological assessment? Bei Yunji was speechless. What did failing the psychological assessment have to do with her going to the war zone? I'm not going. Bei Yunji rejected him without hesitation. Si Qingyan's gaze was intriguing. According to the rules, all official members have to teach in turns. Bei Yunji was speechless. In our nation, Qin Youjiao had just gotten off the plane and did not follow Mr. and Mrs. Qin's instructions to find a nearby hotel. Instead, she got into an extended limousine that had been waiting for a long time and went to a luxurious manor. Miss Qin Youjiao, our miss is waiting for you inside. The butler smiled at Qin Youjiao and brought her to the swimming pool. She saw a graceful woman in a purple waist-length dress lying on a beach chair. The woman seemed to have noticed Qin Youjiao as well. She raised her eyebrows slightly and took off her sunglasses, revealing an exquisite face. Youjiao, I'm so honored. This is our first time meeting. The woman sat up and gestured for Qin Youjiao to sit by the side. Miss Elena. Qin Youjiao revealed an impeccable smile, but facing the elegance and aura of a foreign woman, she could not help but reveal a little nervousness. Indeed, this woman had an extraordinary status at first glance. Just call me Elena. Elena spoke country A's language naturally and without any accent. Her red lips curved. Are you hungry on the way here? I've already gotten someone to prepare Yin Cheng's cuisine for you. Qin Youjiao was a little surprised. You're too polite. Youjiao, I treat you as a friend. At least, compared to that real young lady with another surname. I hope that you're from the Qin family more. Elena had investigated these two people. The little princess of the Qin family, who had been the center of attention since she was young. The real young lady of the Qin family, who who was almost mixed in with the crowd, and had poor aptitude in all aspects. In the end, she also felt that Bai Yunj should not have come back. So what if Bai Yunj was a descendant of the Qin family? Would she fit in with the upper class? Elena liked Qin Luyan, but if she had to choose Qin Luyan's younger sister, she felt that Qin Youjiao was more suitable. Taking a deep breath, Qin Youjiao said unwillingly, "But there's no place for me in the family anymore. Now, I hope to participate in the official concert of the International Musicians Association." Attend a concert? Elena chuckled, her eyes filled with charm. "Youjiao, aren't you aiming too low?" These words made Qin Youjiao freeze. But in the next moment, Elena picked up the glass of red wine and swirled it gently. Her tone was calm and firm as she said, "Youjiao, stay here for a year. I'll let you get what you want." Elena smirked. Concert? Members of the International Musicians Association who were level E and above could participate. "I'll get Arn to guide you. Within a year, you'll be at least a class D." D class? Qin Youjiao could not regain her senses for a long time. She was too unfamiliar with everything in the International Musicians Association. The woman's fingertips brushed against the cake, and she licked her fingers clean. Her tone was naturally arrogant. "Every year at my family gathering, there will be Class B and Class C members of the International Musicians Association playing." Chapter 662. I also know some things about the International Musicians Association. Arn was promoted to Class A this year. Elena said, "There are only a handful of Class A members. Every Class A member is also a truly respected international musician." Hearing this, yearning and envy appeared in Qin Youjiao's eyes. When would she be able to become someone like Arn? "Youjiao, you're very talented. As long as you study hard, you'll get everything you want very soon." A trace of admiration appeared in Elena's eyes. She did admire Qin Youjiao. Only such a person was qualified to be Qin Luyan's sister. Really? Then I want to know what level that person is at now. Qin Youjiao felt uneasy, but she still wanted to know if she had a chance to surpass that person. "You mean Wai Yuan?" Elena was silent for a moment before she said, "At the end of this year, she will be recommended by Du Xiao to take the cross-level assessment." Cross-level assessment? Qin Youjiao was stunned. "I don't know the details either. Du Xiao has taken many confidentiality measures for Wai Yuan." At the mention of Wai Yuan, Elena's expression did not look too good. However, he probably won't let her skip too many levels. No one can skip levels to see or be in one go. After all, even if Du Xiao was the president of the International Musicians Association, other than the International Musicians Association, there was also the International Musicians Alliance in Continent K that restricted each other's development. All these years, the International Musicians Association and the International Musicians Alliance had been friends and enemies. However, now that the person in charge of the International Musicians Alliance had changed to Aoshi, she did not know if they could still maintain such a balanced relationship. Hearing this, Qin Youjiao felt a little better. Pursing her lips, a cold glint flashed past her eyes. She didn't believe that she couldn't surpass that Wai Yuan. As for Bai Yunj, ridicule appeared in Qin Youjiao's eyes. Her opponent was Wai Yuan, not Bai Yunj, who could not compare to her in anything. As long as her brothers found out that Bai Yunj was really useless, and was not even half as good as her, they would definitely change their minds and treat her as their younger sister again. At this thought, Qin Youjiao felt much better. New school bag website. Her eyes were firm. "I'll stay." When she returned to the country, she would make Bai Yunj only worthy of looking up to her. A few days later, border of Country A, War Zone 106. The scorching sun was like a torch, the clouds were floating in the distant mountains, the strong wind was swaying the tall pines on the rocks, as if they were vast and mighty in the sky. Nearby, there was only a long road. After getting out of the car, Bai Yunj held the camera and took a picture of this scene calmly. The border protectors at the side. He didn't know what the higher-ups were thinking, sending a delicate little girl over. Moreover, this little girl was obviously spoiled since childhood. Her skin was so fair and tender that it seemed like water could be squeezed out of it. She was most likely a young mistress. She probably thought that this place was for her to go on a scenic tour. Miss, you'd better come with me, the dark-skinned young man said. Did they say how long I have to stay in there? Bei Yunj slowly rolled up the strap of the camera and caught up with the young man. I don't know, the young man said. Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched when she heard this. She glanced at the endless road on both sides. Very well, she couldn't go back. Miss, I'll take you to Captain Gao first. Along the way, what surprised the young man in camouflage was that apart from stopping to take photos, Bei Yunj almost stopped communicating with him. Chapter 663. However, speaking of which, this was very strange. In the past, only rich young masters were sent here to be beaten up. Why was a young lady sent here this time? Were people from wealthy families advocating equality between men and women now? They wouldn't even let a little girl off. Perhaps it was because Bei Yunj was too quiet that the young man in camouflage couldn't help but nag. Zhuo suddenly asked, "How many days do you want to stay here?" Bei Yunj laughed and fiddled with her camera lazily. "Let's leave as soon as possible." In her previous life, she was tired of staying. Although in her previous life, she liked to stay in the war zone. This was probably the first time Zhuo had met such a clear-headed rich man. Don't you want to experience it? You're too clear-headed. The person who was sent here this year was really different from the people who were sent here in the past. Bei Yunj looked at him again and said leisurely, "Do I look like someone who's willing to suffer?" Zhuo was speechless. He couldn't see any major flaws in Bei Yunj's personality, although she was a little too rational. In the past, the young masters who were sent here all looked down their noses, thinking that they were some big shot. However, the person who came today was a little unpredictable. Sweat flowed down from the texture of his muscles. Bei Yunj glanced at him and looked away, until they entered the training ground. From afar, Bei Yunj saw a group of real warriors. They were shirtless, revealing their firm chests. Weren't they too good-looking? Soon. However, when they saw Zhuo with a fair and pretty girl who looked like a fairy, their legs almost turned to jelly. Where did this little fairy come from? Captain Gao nodded and glanced at Bei Yunj indifferently. He didn't know Bei Yunj's identity. He only knew that old Master Lung had sent her here. Bei Yunj was sent to Captain Gao. At this moment, Captain Gao was training with more than 20 team members. Miss Pei. Captain Gao glanced at Bei Yunj and saw that the girl was wearing a sparkling golden skirt and a loose black suit. Only the cuffs were embroidered with exquisite golden patterns. She was also wearing a pair of leather black high heels. He said that although the young lady was here for training, she must not be allowed to encounter any physical threats. It was obvious that old Master Lung was very nervous about this delicate young lady. Captain Gao, I'm sorry. I don't understand. Bei Yunj. She didn't feel any psychological pressure at all. The girl's black hair was loose and curly, draping over her shoulders. Her eyes were bright and languid, too exquisite and beautiful. Do you know that you came to the war zone today? Captain Gao took a deep breath. Bei Yunj. Who would have thought? Suddenly, someone pointed at her and said in disbelief, trembling. We also looked at her warily. What are you doing here? Soon Bei Yunj turned around and saw Hui. Miss Pei, is this your first time in the war zone? Sergeant Gao asked. Just now, this young lady had said with an innocent face that she didn't know much about this. Wasn't this Miss Pei too vengeful? Could it be that she knew that he had been demoted here, so she came here specially? In the end, this newcomer, Hui, actually recognized Bei Yunj at a glance. Bei Yunj's eyebrows twitched, and she glanced at Hui beside her. Chapter 664. Tell me, how did you get to know her? Captain Gao asked Hui. Hui was about to blurt it out, but he was afraid of offending Bei Yunj. After all, after seeing Bei Yunj play with guns last time, he was already traumatized by this missy. I met her when I was accompanying Captain Ji on a mission. Hui felt a little guilty. The Ji family seems to have a good relationship with Miss Pei's family. Hearing this, Sergeant Gao also took a look and roughly understood what was going on. Ji Yiqing was also a famous big shot in the district. Everyone knew that Ji Yiqing's Ji family referred to the Ji family, which had been a family of generals for generations. The The Ji family was also a prestigious family in the upper-class society. It was normal for them to know some Missy from a wealthy family. Captain Gao glanced at Bei Yunj and said indifferently, "I'll get someone to prepare clothes for you tomorrow. From tomorrow onwards, you have to follow the rules." Bei Yunj was speechless. At this moment, Bei Yunj felt more and more that Si Qingyan and Elder Zhong were tricking her. She had failed the psychological evaluation, and they had brought her to this godforsaken place? At this thought, Bei Yunj scanned the other places impatiently. However, the next moment, she saw the surveillance camera from the corner of her eye. After a while, Bei Yunj licked her red lips as her pretty eyes narrowed slightly. Then, she laughed lazily and glanced at the camera carelessly. Soon she turned her head. At this moment, everyone in the control room almost had their hearts jump out of their throats. "Isn't this girl too smart? That look just now scared me to death." Meishu Bar. Master Lung touched his heart. The handsome doctor in a white coat beside him curled his lips as interest flashed across his eyes. "She's my patient?" At first, Cui Hingchuan saw that this girl was obviously not smart to come to the war zone dressed like this. But now, it seemed that no one was better at hiding themselves than this person. No wonder his junior brother said that he could not do anything to Bei Yunj when he went to treat her. A patient who was unwilling to cooperate with the doctor was indeed very troublesome. Especially a smart patient. "Yes, Dr. Cui, I'll leave Guer to you during this time." Zhong Shenglin, who was next to him, was the most nervous. Since he knew that Bei Yunj had bipolar I, he could hardly relax. How could he have such a psychological problem at his age? Cui Hingchuan observed Bei Yunj's behavior while making notes. He curled his lips and teased, "All these years old Master Lung has never lent me out. It seems like this girl has a big start. Hingchuan, nothing must happen to this child." Then Cui Hingchuan heard him pause for a moment. "This is not just my idea. It's also the higher-up's idea." Hearing this, Cui Hingchuan's eyes flashed with surprise. He did not expect that the person leading this matter was not old Master Lung, but the higher-ups. "I know, but I can only do my best. Mental illnesses are difficult to control, let alone treat." Cui Hingchuan looked at the girl in the video for a while, and couldn't help but mutter to himself, "A girl like this shouldn't suffer like this." "Dr. Cui, what are you talking about?" Zhong Shenglin asked. Cui Hingchuan came back to his senses and smiled. "Nothing. What we need to do now is to find the cause of Miss Pei's illness. At the training ground." Chapter 665. Bei Yunj hesitated for a moment, and prepared to turn around and leave. Seeing this scene, Captain Gao was confused. "Miss Pei, where are you going?" Captain Gao's eyelids twitched. "I'm going to watch you train from the side." Bei Yunj's tone was gentle. She really sounded like a young lady who did not know anything, but her beautiful eyes were lazy and clear. No one could understand the emotions in her eyes. "Miss Pei, do you think you're here for a vacation?" Captain Gao was silent for a moment before he looked at her with a fake smile. At this moment, the team members who were preparing to train felt an unusual sense of danger and coldness in Captain Gao's tone. Captain Gao hated those young ladies and young masters who did not know anything the most. Who was it that sent such a good-looking young miss with no redeeming qualities to him? Bei Yunj's emotions were incomprehensible as she glanced at Captain Gao. And this scene was captured by the monitor. Zhong Shenglin was extremely nervous. He patted old Master Lung's back hard and shouted protectively, "What kind of subordinate is this? Look at my Guer. Is she here to suffer? My Guer's hands are much more useful than these uncouth people." Old Master Lung was almost out of breath from the pat. He pushed Zhong Shenglin away. "Gao Yang's temper is like this. Now that we're in this district, I'm relieved to hand her over to him. Also, don't make a distinction between us. What do you mean by us uncouth people?" Zhong Shenglin was not in the mood to argue with him. He stared at Bei Yunj nervously and suddenly thought of Bei Yunj's temper. His heart skipped a beat. "I almost forgot. Guer's temper doesn't seem to be very good. She can't possibly fight with someone, right?" Old Master Lung glanced at Zhong Shenglin in confusion, and smiled nonchalantly. Who knew? Zhong Shenglin was silent, and just looked at him silently. Book 8. Old Master Lung. Then, just as Old Master Lung and the others turned to look at the screen, they saw Bei Yunj walking towards Captain Gao. However, he had no intention of causing trouble. Old Master Lung and Zhong Shenglin heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, at least they didn't cause a ruckus. Old Master Lung could not help but say, Gur shouldn't be that scary when she's angry, right? Do you know why Ji Yiqing's last mission was suddenly resolved? Zhong Shenglin glanced at him meaningfully. Last mission? Isn't that a high-tech terrorist? Old Master Lung asked subconsciously. Those people sent Gur a pair of bloody eyeballs, threatening Gur with death. After Zhong Shenglin finished speaking, Old Master Lung gasped. This group of people was really lawless. How was it resolved later? Zhong Shenglin said calmly, Gur found our nation's technology group, as well as our nation's international police and Marcus. She locked onto the gang's headquarters and wiped them out in one go. It was said that because that group of people had set up their headquarters in the no man's land, it was directly bombed to the point where only broken walls and ruins were left. If he were to handle this matter, he might not be able to deal with it. After all, he was from country A. However, at that time, Bei Yunj was a member of our nation's Institute of Computational Technology. The higher-ups of our nation were also very concerned about Bei Yunj's personal safety and future nationality choice. Therefore, after being instigated by Marcus, the higher-ups directly dealt with that group of people. How could a scientific research genius who was valued by the country be allowed to be in danger? Chapter 666. He had heard about this occasionally, but he did not know that it had something to do with Bei Yunj. Isn't this girl's vengeful heart a little too strong? Zhong Shenglin had always been protective. He retorted. Which young lady can accept being given eyeballs? But no little girl would destroy their gang headquarters, just because a pair of eyeballs had been given to her by a terrorist. Thinking of this, Old Master Lung felt his scalp go numb. However, speaking of which, with Bei Yunj's personality, she was really suitable to be his successor. Just as Old Master Lung was deep in thought, a call suddenly came in. What happened? Old Master Lung asked. The spy we caught last time escaped. There are foreign criminals involved, and the car escorting the spy suffered heavy casualties. Old Master Lung, what should we do? When Old Master Lung heard this, his expression changed. What do you mean, what should we do? Hurry up and seal the country's borders. Don't let any of them escape. If that spy returned, it would have a huge impact on country A. They must not let him leave. Yes, I'll arrange for someone to chase after him now. At the same time, at the training ground, even number 1 column, odd number 1 column. I want you to split into 2 teams and fight in the area. With that, Captain Gao distributed the red and blue team badges. Reporting. Team Red is still short of 1 person. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone realized that Captain Gao had a red team badge in his hand. Captain Gao said slowly, Who said that? As soon as he finished speaking, everyone saw Captain Gao turn his head and look at Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj, who was taking photos everywhere, happened to meet Captain Gao's eyes. The members of Team Red were speechless. They suddenly had a bad feeling. Bei Yunj, you're a member of Team Red now. Captain Gao said calmly. Reporting Captain Gao. But in the past, no outsider has ever trained with us in actual combat. Someone from Team Red immediately protested. In the past, even if someone came, they would only practice shooting with them and carry out daily training. Now there was a woman who looked like she could be blown away. What was going on with actual combat training with them? This is an order. I will give you 2 flags. Protecting the flags is your mission. Whoever can protect their flag until the end will win this exercise. After that, everyone saw Sergeant Gao carry 2 bags and pass them to their captain. Then Sergeant Gao glanced at Bei Yunj and asked, Are you ready? When you're ready, you can leave. A few minutes later, Ajwa hurried over and asked curiously, Where's Miss Pei? Training. Captain Gao was unmoved. Zhua suddenly panicked and immediately said, Captain Gao, this is not Old Master Lung's man. Don't be too strict. Those who come to the war zone, regardless of whether they are sent here, are all the same. Sergeant Gao's tone was cold. Where is she now? Great Eagle Forest. As soon as Captain Gao finished speaking, Zhuo almost had a heart attack. This was their field training ground. How could they let someone without any fighting ability go to the Great Eagle Forest? Captain Gao, if anything happens to her, how are you going to explain it to Old Master Lung? I will take full responsibility. Sergeant Gao frowned. In the monitoring room, Zhong Shenglin frowned. What's going on? Where are you sending Gu? Old Master Lung, who had just finished the call and knew where Bei Yunj had been arranged to go, had an ugly expression on his face. This Gao Yang is really a bastard. What's going on? Zhong Shenglin could not help but ask. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.